27th. Welcome in. Hope you had a great weekend. G-Mac, how was your weekend?
Good weekend, buddy. Had a wedding, first wedding in a while, so that was a lot of fun. Went to Atlanta on Saturday for that. Had our first youth basketball game on Saturday morning. So it was and then Sunday was dedicated to the NFC and the AFC championships. I didn't even go to church small group last night because I said, there's 3 football games left. And at this point there's 2 because at that point the NFC championship is already done. So I just can't go tonight. Just can't do it. I have to watch these games. Did you feel good about what you watched in the last night's game?
Yeah, I mean, for most of it, I didn't get to see all of last night's game in its entirety, but I got to see probably most of the second half. But it's just, I mean, you wonder, didn't feel great about Buffalo's play calling. I did think that the competitive aspect of the game was interesting to watch. I thought it was probably the most creative dink and dunk performance combined that I've seen in a long time. You could tell that both coordinators were just on edge a little bit. Maybe both needed to make a trip to game day Men's Health. Wasn't really cutting it loose, but then Josh Allen gets a big throw over the middle of the tight end. Mahomes obviously scrambles, makes a couple of big plays. It felt more like both guys called that game not wanting to lose it than they did wanting to go out and win it. And then just either a couple of calls, a couple of mistakes end up costing Buffalo the game. The quarterback sneak stuff is, I don't want to say it's being overblown. You had other opportunities, and there's no guarantee that if you convert one of those, you're just going to go down, score, win the game. So it was an entertaining game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I was really surprised at Buffalo's lack of protection. I mean, listen, I know Chris Jones can get to the quarterback. Karlaftis has been great, but the protection for Buffalo was bad last night. And I think it continues to go back to what I've said for a while. I mean, Josh Allen's awesome. He's really good. And outside of James Cook, I just don't feel like he's had an elite weapon. And, I mean, Diggs was great, but it didn't feel like he wanted to be there. So I just feel like they got to put more guys around him if they're going to get over this hump. And you can go through whether it's the Tiger Woods era, whether it was the Brady era, whether it was, there's been a lot of different eras in sports. The Nick Saban era at Alabama, we've seen a lot of great teams, a lot of great players not win championships because of dominant eras. And we talked about the great quarterbacks during Brady's run. We're going to talk about a lot of great quarterbacks during this Mahomes run that aren't going to get their opportunity to prove their greatness because Mahomes is going to keep sweeping championships from them.
Well, and if it's all about championships, I totally get that. And it's hard to push back on that. I think that's what our community and our society has told us, that the championships are all that matters, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But what I would say is, if you were to take Xavier Worthy, would Xavier Worthy be the best weapon on the Buffalo Bills? I think so, probably, right? And when you have guys like DeAndre Hopkins that are joining for pennies on the dollar to chase a ring, then that's when you get to a situation where it's very, very manageable. Buffalo has not always been a great free agent destination. The fact that they got Von Miller and have gotten a couple other pieces is pretty remarkable, but they are not a place where people are going to flock to go play. Never have been. They've always had to make their hay in the draft. So now if you're in Miami, you're in LA, you're in Vegas, guys will go play in those places for less money. But Buffalo, you're not getting any hometown discounts. So tough spot to be in, feel bad for them. But I thought there were a couple times last night where Buffalo became a little predictable from a play calling standpoint. The Bush push stuff, the tush push stuff, I'm over that. And going over left guard every time, it's where he's going. Stop it. Just run off tackle or run just some type of lead or zone or ISO or anything other than just quarterback getting pushed from behind. So I don't know. I think they kind of got what they deserved last night and had a couple key mistakes as well.
You just wonder how you could keep going back to it. And you could talk about repping it in practice. You could talk about how you practiced it. And maybe they didn't have a tush push that they actually practiced enough to feel confident to be able to run it. But as you mentioned, when you have the entire broadcast team going over and over again where the ball is going to go, you have a defense aligned to that side. That's pretty apparent that they know where it's going to go and they're trying to take that part away. And you keep going back to it. There's no answer for that. There's literally no response as to how that's going to work, why you think that's going to work, and what's going to happen. So the Chiefs move on to their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. Winning 3 straight has not happened often, and they'll have a chance to make that history. But nonetheless, Sean McDermott on what he told the team post-game. we'll get back to that audio a little bit later. But what is the message after that, G-Mac, when you continue to go to something and you continue to try something and it's just not there. It's not happening. But you know good and well that defense had an idea what you were going to bring, had an idea what you were going to run, and you couldn't make it work.
Yeah, and I think that's when things get a little predictable. Like, all right, so they were going Kansas City was going with a little loop pass where they roll Mahomes out to the right. In that play, while predictable, there are options. There are big options. The one time I felt like they got a little creative, I believe it was a short yardage situation. Thought they were going to run some type of quarterback downhill off, kind of like it's a little bit like a mid zone to the right-hand side. And then, oh, hang on a second. There's the pitch man. He pitches it outside. They score a touchdown. Like the one time they got a little creative there. I feel like sometimes, man, if you get push, one, it's a dumb play. It's a boring play, and it's kind of unstoppable. So they need to outlaw it. I don't know what's taking so dang long, but it needs to go away. But it just, to me, when you are, the whole reason why you do the QB sneak is because that's the shortest distance to get from point A to point B. Point A to point B, shortest distance is a straight line, right? Well, QB sneak, straight line. Sometimes you find a soft bubble in the defense and you can veer it out. That's fine, but straight line. Well, when you go off tackle, you lose that. Or when you go off left guard, you lose that. You're going and hitting it in the same spot that you could have had your back hitting it at 100 miles an hour. So you lose the forward momentum. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So the fact that they missed it a couple times there, I thought was one thing, but there wasn't a whole lot of creativity in their plan. I thought their fourth down play, why is Josh rolling to his right? The pressure is coming off the right. You had plenty of room left. Why are you leaving the pocket? I mean, why are you drifting back and throwing a jump ball from a distance? I don't know. I didn't think Josh played well in the first quarter either. So I think he has as much as we want to say that he doesn't have the supporting cast or he doesn't have this, doesn't have that, like he doesn't play well against the Chiefs very often in the postseason. So if he plays his A game, it might be a different conversation.
It was somewhat predictable at times. It was somewhat exciting at times, somewhat disappointing at times, just different aspects of that game and how it went yesterday. Here's Bills head coach Sean McDermott on his message to the team post-game.
Not the result. We gave everything we had, and I told the players that I'm extremely proud of them. Wasn't the result we were looking for, but they gave this season everything they had in this team, everything they had, and you guys saw it out there until the very last play. And those guys were going for it, and I appreciate that.
You can't question the effort, whether it's Dalton Kincaid making a couple of big catches, whether it is James Cook's effort to get into the end zone, keep his knees, his body off the ground. You give them credit. I mean, the defense had a big stop or two late to be able to get the ball back and get another opportunity. It's just, man, you had those opportunities to be able to get to the Super Bowl, and it feels like because of a couple of plays you weren't able to do that. Folks are going to complain about the officiating. It appeared as though on the replay, Josh Allen had the first down. There were a couple other questionable calls. That's just going to be – I've just come to the conclusion that that's just what it's going to be when Kansas City plays. People are going to be on fire about – the officiating, feel like the officiating's against them, feel like the officiating's helping Kansas City. We don't really penalty vulture on this show, so I don't really know how to help people with that. As far as I'm concerned, it is what it is. You got to go find a way to win the game, and Buffalo couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City is going to get the benefit of the doubt. They have for a while now. Guess who used to get the benefit of the doubt 15 years ago? The New England Patriots. Like, the best teams get the benefit of the doubt. And while I know that people say, well, you got the first down with the QB sneak, tell me, with indisputable video evidence in your life and game on the line, do you tell me that he got that first down? It's easy for people to say that, hindsight being 2020, but are you willing to put your livelihood on the line? Would you bet your career on making that call by saying definitively, yes, he got that first down? I personally can. I don't think there was enough definitive evidence to overturn it. So when they marked it short, they marked it short. It was all about where they mark it. How often do they overturn spot on, and when they're up in the wash, when they're up in there in I guess the mosh pit, how often do they overturn the spot of the football? Very, very, very rare. So I think that was probably the right call. So if that's the one you're mad about, fine. But there have been a whole lot more egregious penalties called against teams playing Kansas City this year than what we saw yesterday. I thought yesterday was more fair than it normally is. The Texans, yeah, I think they had a gripe, but I felt like yesterday was a pretty decent officiated game.
All right, so 32-29, Kansas City gets to 15-2, undefeated at home this year. They move on to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Patrick Mahomes, 18-26, 245, a touchdown, no interceptions. Josh Allen goes 22-34, 237, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Your star offensively for Buffalo was Mac Hollins, 3 for 73 and a touchdown. James Cook had 13 for 85, scored 2 on the ground. Kareem Hunt, 17 for 64 with a touchdown for the Chiefs. Mahomes had 2 rushing touchdowns. His legs, a massive part of the difference in this game for Kansas City. But Buffalo outgained Kansas City, and at points in time felt like that, at least offensively, we're going to have a chance to outplay Kansas City. It's the third downs and the conversion downs that were an issue. 5 of 14 on third down, 4 of 6 on fourth down, and those were the ones that are going to come back and bite you. I mean, Kansas City had the only turnover in the game. Nonetheless, Chiefs move on to the Super Bowl. On the NFC side of things, not quite as entertaining, not quite as enjoyable to watch. The Eagles take down the Commanders 55-23. 7 rushing touchdowns in the game. Saquon Barkley, 15 for 118, 3 rushing touchdowns. Will Shipley, 4 for 77, a rushing touchdown. Jalen Hurts, 10 for 16, 3 rushing touchdowns. He was also 20 of 28 for 246, a touchdown, no picks through the air. The 7 rushing touchdowns, most in a championship game since 1940, when the Bears won the NFL championship versus Washington, 73-0. The 55 points, that's a conference game record, and the 32-point win is a playoff franchise record for the Philadelphia Eagles. This was just flat dominant in every sense of the word. G-Mac, 29 of 48 for Jaden Daniels, 255, a touchdown, no interceptions, under pressure on a regular basis. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter inside. They had pressure from the outside. When they decided to blitz, they got pressure. He was on the move often. Zach Ertz had 11 for 104, but they couldn't tackle. This was almost like watching college football, honestly, because Washington, they've had issues tackling. I think they were giving up 3.3 per carry before contact coming in. They couldn't get ball carries to the ground. Had opportunities, too. It wasn't just perfect execution or great play calling. They had angles on guys and just couldn't get them to the ground. And then Jaden Daniels under duress too often. It wasn't going to be there for Washington.
No. And yesterday was the first time I thought that Jaden Daniels had a couple of uncharacteristic misses, a couple throws that I think he probably would have liked to have had back. The protection was terrible. I think they just kind of ran out of gas. And I think all the emotions of last week, going on the road, doing it and winning the way they won in Detroit, I think there was a little bit, I don't want to say a hangover, but I just think it was hard to get back on track and do it again against a team that has been in this situation before. I thought Jalen played great. Really smart football game, got the ball out quickly, was accurate, didn't have to do a whole lot of ridiculous things, but mixed just enough in on throws downfield to make you respect them. The running game is always going to be a huge part of what they do, and Saquon's been one of the great stories of the NFL season so far. I mean, he's unblocked. You can't stop the guy. I mean, you don't even expect guys to make the tackle when they arrive and initiate contact anymore. It's like, golly, you're not even surprised when he's breaking free. I mean, he was, and again, outstanding on a couple of plays. And did they bottle him up for the most part? Yeah, they did. But all it takes is 2 or 3 plays, and it's all she wrote. Breaking to the outside along the goal line. First run of the game was off the charts. He's just so much fun to watch.
So that was on the NFL yesterday. We had massive games on the hardwood. Auburn with a gritty win against Tennessee. Once again, you're not getting penalty vultures here, so you should probably save that portion of it. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. 205-834-9450. You could text into the show, tweet into the show at Mac and Cube if you would like to communicate with us there. We got Paul Feinbaum coming up after our next break. I want to ask Paul this question. The expectations for both Alabama and Auburn, what are they for him heading into next year? It feels like the Auburn expectations are beginning to ramp up just a little bit, according to certain people. Is that good or bad for Hugh Freeze. Also, who does he think is the next head coach to win his first national championship? We went into the year with 3 who had one. We lost Mac Brown to college coaching. That was down to 2. Ryan Day gets his. We're back to 3. Who's next in line there? And then Jay Bilas will join us at 9 a.m. He was on call for Auburn, Tennessee. Get his thoughts on that one. What does it say about Bruce Pearl's team being able to grab that win? Janai Broome being back in the lineup. Thought Bruce Pearl kind of undersold that one with us a little bit on Friday. But nonetheless, good to see Broome back in the lineup. It was a well-played hand by Bruce when he joined the show Friday. And a massive win for Coach Pearl and the Auburn Tigers against Tennessee, winning a bit of a different style basketball game than they had been in many times this year. We'll do all that and more next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. $7:19 Monday morning, January 27th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Watch live on YouTube. You can see us in studio each and every morning. Search Jocks 945. He joins us each and every week thanks to our friends at Craneworks. You can hear him right here 2 to 6 p.m. on Jocks. It's Paul Feinbaum.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah. The big dog's got it.
Paul Feinbaum on Mac and Cube in the Morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it. The big dog's got it. Now, Paul Feinbaum.
Paul, always great to have you in on a Monday morning. I want to start with Ryan Day getting his national championship. We entered last season with 3 coaches that had a title. Mac Brown run out of North Carolina. We're down to 2. Now Day gets his. He's back to 3. If you had to go out on a limb and say which head coach is next in line to get their first title, who would you go with?
I would say Steve Sarkisian. I think he's probably set up the best of any of those who don't have a title, and it is still we're getting used to Ryan Day being a national champion. It changes the narrative a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not comfortable for many, but it certainly counts though, Paul. We haven't really had much of an opportunity to really visit with you extensively since the national championship. A lot of people are implying that it's the end of the SEC. A lot of people implying that this is only going to become a runaway freight train. What is kind of your big overarching takeaway of what happened last Monday?
Well, I think in the moment, it is a very big story, Greg, that the SEC hasn't been there in 2 years. But I think if you pull the camera back, it really doesn't matter a whole lot. I think in sports, we tend to look at things over a period of time, not just immediately. And the SEC's record speaks for itself. I think it's unwise for some to try to argue that the past season was anything different than what it turned out to be. I mean, I've heard people talk about, well, maybe the SEC, certainly the SEC is stronger top to bottom. I think we already know that. We live it. You see football, and you and Cole see football all over the country. And I think it is not bragging, nor is it boasting to say that the SEC top to bottom is the best league. But when you don't win the title, when you don't go to the championship, when the champion ends up beating 2 of your schools, and your champion loses in the quarterfinals, it's a big blow to the ego of a league that has thrived for more than 20 years on how big and bad and brawny and successful the SEC has been. So that is more of a shot to the psyche than any great narrative changing because of what has happened the last 2 years.
Is there anything that you realistically think you can point to as to even why a little bit of the slip? Some people would point to finances. I find that hard to imagine. Some people would point to alumni bases, fan bases. Is there anything that you could realistically say, I would probably put this at the top of the list, and this is realistically a big reason that the SEC has not been as dominant as they were in the previous run?
Well, I mean, I think you always start with Nick Saban, but that's predictable. And the fact is that we all know since 2009, Saban has won 6 of those. So, I mean, that's a big deal when one person in particular has captured not only 6 championships, but has been in 9 title games. So if you take that out of the equation, the SEC doesn't look nearly as dominant. But I think beyond that, I think Alabama is an interesting example. I think there is a little bit of fatigue that has set into Alabama, and it was before Nick Saban retired, as we've all pointed out. I think, it's easy to say, well, the quarterback was subpar in the SEC this year, but if you look at the championship game, the 2 quarterbacks in that game, while they both performed well, were certainly not the kind of quarterbacks that usually turn programs around. So I think some of it is just circumstance, and these things happen in sports. You can argue for the rest of the month that the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the NFL, but they're still staying home from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's certainly. It doesn't really matter. It's a little bit more about the realities of how these teams play on the biggest possible stages. And while I think that it's understandable why people have taken their shots, I think it's a bit premature, and I would be keeping receipts if I were you, Paul. One thing I would say also is with Georgia, I feel like Georgia is kind of immune to criticism. I'm not saying it's fair, unfair, however you feel about it. They are kind of immune, though, because if you look at the pieces that they've lost in the portal, I feel like if this was any other program, people would be freaking out. They're down 9 in the portal right now. They've lost 15 guys, 10 of which were 4 stars, a couple of which were 5 stars. I mean, real like difference-making players. Is there any reason to be concerned at this point, or do you think they've adequately established enough of a foundation where they can have that kind of turnover and it won't make much of a difference?
Well, I'm not alarmed by Georgia, but I think a year from now, if they don't do anything in the playoffs next year, the questions will start being raised. Did we see was Kirby Smart a comet or not? I mean, right now, I don't think, I was asked last Tuesday morning, Greg, as many were, hey, is Ryan Day now the best coach in college football? And I said, no, Kirby Smart is still the best coach. And I'm sure some people were just chortling in the state of Ohio. Of course, those same people who were chortling were wanting Ryan Day fired 7 weeks ago. It's the right answer, and it's not about being a prisoner of the Southeast or anything else. It's just he has performed at the highest level over the last 7 or 8 years. So I think he gets the benefit of the doubt. I think as you look at his schedule next year, it probably is a little more palatable than this year. And I think that's really what got Kirby this year. He played the toughest schedule imaginable for a contender, and then he lost his quarterback. It sound like excuses, but the schedule was a reality of his circumstances. I think the biggest issue was I think people wanted the SEC wanted that Georgia-Alabama game on the calendar, and then everything else just fell with it.
Paul Feinbaum joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline with us each and every week, thanks to Craneworks. I want to switch gears here and go over to basketball. And Bruce Pearl gets a win against Tennessee over the weekend, and you continue to see things that come out from that game of hasn't happened in program history, first time in 20 years, 50 years. Where would you place Bruce Pearl right now on a list of all-time Auburn athletics great coaches?
Oh, I think he would be on the Mount Rushmore of that, which means there's only 3 other spots. So it starts getting rather difficult. And I think the fact that he's done it in basketball is remarkable because, we think of Pat Dye and don't forget John Heisman was there if you want to go old school, Bo Jackson, Cam Newton, people like that. But I think it's been sustained, and I think the Bruce Pearl story is even more remarkable, Cole, because of the circumstances. Exactly 10 years ago when he arrived there, it was a close call. It was no slam dunk that he would even get the job because he had to get personal sign-off from the commissioner of the SEC at the time, Mike Slive, who was still angry with Pearl for lying to him 5 years earlier in what should have been a 3-game suspension at Tennessee and ended up in a firing and a 3-year show cause. So that's how out Bruce Pearl was, and a little-known figure in Auburn history deserves much of the credit, and that's Jay Jacobs, who was put out a couple of years ago to make room for others, but really is the reason that Bruce Pearl got that job, and it was Jay Jacobs' relationship with the commissioner that helped to the feelings because. They had said they were very tight, and Jacobs went to Slive and said, listen, we need sign off on this. And finally, the commissioner gave it.
Paul, finally, when you look at the transition into basketball season, I, for one, have long been a person that believes basketball would benefit if it moved back a little bit. If the season, for instance, started in January so that we had May Madness as opposed to March Madness. I know that's been met with a lot of resistance, but it feels like now, look, for Bama and Auburn fans, we've been starting to pay attention for basketball for quite a while now. I've been watching it really all fall and even now through the early parts of January. I'm all in, but I don't know if others are as all in as we might be just based on the numbers. The numbers for basketball are frankly atrocious. What can we do to better support the second largest college sport, and how do we make sure that it gets as many eyeballs as possible?
I think your solution, Greg, is the only one. I mean, I remember sitting in Mountain Brook in October at SEC basketball media days. I mean, literally sitting there 3 days before the Alabama-Tennessee game in Knoxville and the Georgia-Texas game in Austin. It was the biggest weekend of the college football season, and on Tuesday and Wednesday of that week, we were trying to promote basketball and doing it rather unsuccessfully, because the second the guests would go off the set, whether it was Calipari or Kim Mulkey or Don Staley, hey, Paul, can Alabama go up to Knoxville and win? There's nothing you can do about that. And what's really that's one thing, Greg. The worst part of it is in November, when very meaningful games are being played, and December, when you had the ACC SEC class, it barely showed up on the radar screen. I mean, there's just not enough air. I mean, we're all involved in football, and you can't stop the buildup for the Iron Bowl or the SEC championship game or the first round of the playoff to say, okay, let's stop for a couple of hours and talk about how great the SEC is in basketball. So just now you're getting the attention, and I'm not saying it's too late, because basketball is always tilted toward the end, but we've already missed 2.5 months of real estate that is the highest quality basketball you can get.
Paul, always great stuff. Always appreciate the time. Look forward to catching up with you next week.
Enjoy it. Thank you, guys.
That's Paul Feinbaum, ESPN, the SEC Network, and hear him 2 to 6 p.m. right here on Jocks 94.5. Listen online, jocksfm.com. That app is in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can download that for free. Always tune in. Follow up with some of the questions that we asked Paul, and then we'll get back into Championship Sunday. Top 3 coming up later this show, later this hour. Jay Bilas will be with us at 9 a.m. today. And obviously late in the show, we'll get you to our bad box course of the day. But when we come back, the next coach in college football to win his first national championship, who will that be? We discuss it right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. 7:35 Monday, January 27th. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We'll talk a little bit more Championship Sunday next hour. Get your calls on that, your feedback on that. Are the officials to blame for certain team moving on to the Super Bowl? Some people say yes. Some people believe that that is the reason that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be there. I want to tell you first about Your CBD Store. If you're having trouble sleeping, Your CBD Store has products to help get you a restful night's sleep. Wake up feeling refreshed. Also products to get you going in the morning without the jitterness. Get you ready for a good day. If you're having trouble focusing throughout the course of the day, skincare, gut health can help you with that. Also your pet, skincare, gut health, arthritis, anxiety for the pet in your household. They've helped multiple pets in my household be able to get up and down the stairs just a little bit better because they're the largest brick and mortar CBD retailer in the world. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. They've got the stamp seal on those products. So go check out one of their 3 locations. Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleaver, and Trustful just off 459, Your CBD Store, where good health hits home. If I asked you that question, G-Mac, would it be the same as Paul Feinbaum and Steve Sarkisian be your go-to for the next head coach to get their first national championship in college football?
I think Steve Sarkisian would be a really, really good option. It'd be hard, I think, at this point to go up and take a look at all the different other options that you would have. Because, man alive, I mean, it's hard. First of all, it's really hard to win a national championship. Like, if you look at the ACC, how many teams do you feel like are really capable potentially this year of going to get one? I think Clemson is. I don't know if I see another one. Mario Cristobal would be in the mix out of the ACC. If you go to the Big 12, I don't think there's a program in the Big 12 right now that can win a natty. So I'm going to remove them. I look at the Big 10, Sharon Moore, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, who else in the Big 10? James Franklin, I think, is probably in a pretty good spot heading into this upcoming year. Dan Lanning at Oregon, really good spot at some point to break down the wall and go and win it. And then in the SEC, I think there's a handful of guys that could go and potentially do it. A bunch. Billy Napier, Brian Kelly. I know people don't think so. I think Kalen DeBoer can go get one at some point here pretty dang soon. I think Sark, of course, has already been mentioned. So there's a handful, but man, it doesn't feel like there's as many guys that are close to winning a natty as Sark. That's for sure.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the program and what they put into it, sort of financially where the program stands. And, you know, we know what Texas has behind it, and they'd be able to sort of put that into it. Hamilton tweets in, at Mac and Cube, is it really that confusing as to why the SEC has been somewhat down? Non-SEC schools are replacing their mediocre talent by purchasing the SEC's good talent and depth, so they improve their teams while degrading the SEC teams. I think there's an extent of that is probably real. I think there's some reality to that, but let's take Ohio State, for example. You went and got a couple of top end guys to come in and help. Caleb Downs was great for him this year. Quinshon Judkins was great. Seth McLaughlin was great when he was healthy, but he didn't play in the championship game. So you didn't just completely
also didn't have a bad snap all year.
That's also fair. You didn't
also won the Remington.
Didn't rebuild that team just with SEC talent. So I think that's where you'd look at it and say, well, okay, but you know, you might not say that that's just the only reason that they had that success. They're going to be pretty close to that without a couple of those guys. But how many other teams have done that to where that they've really pulled down the level of what SEC teams are? I think that's where I would maybe push back on it a little bit is what other schools have come in, rated SEC talent that has negated what SEC teams are going to be able to do. Maybe it's just that it's collective, and because so many different teams have taken one or two guys that it's hurt Southeastern Conference teams to that effect. I don't know. Do you feel like that there's a lot of reality to what he tweets into the show?
No, I think that there's some, and it's been evidenced a little bit by how many guys were not available to Georgia, who, by all accounts, recruits as well as anybody. How many guys were unavailable to them, and how inconsistent were they as a result? Because the second they lost a guy, they'd get young. Like, what happened with Notre Dame and being able to successfully replace great players as often as they did this season is rare, extremely rare. So it will be even more difficult, even more challenging in the future if their backups start going and being taken, because you're going to end up playing freshmen, and freshmen are inconsistent. So that's what I think, that everyone looks at Kalen DeBoer and their situation this year. I mean, they had a lot of freshmen on the field. I don't feel like it was a complete failure by any stretch, because most teams are inconsistent when you play freshmen. Even the best teams are inconsistent when you play freshmen. That's what we saw from Georgia, who could have lost 5 games this year and was fortunate enough to just lose 3. So I don't know about you, man. Like, I think when you get young in a hurry, that can be very, very difficult.
All right, let's break it down and sort of narrow it down here, since we've started to have the conversation. I'll give you a little hint so you can think during the break on our top 3, which will come at you next. We give it to you each and every day. If you had to rank the top 3 head coaches in college football right now that you think have the best opportunity to go win their first national championship, who would those 3 be? Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into that than just the actual coach. So we'll give you ours. You can tweet in, call in, give you yours, 800-239-9569 at Mac and Cube. Great way to be a part of the show there as well. Before we get to that break, though, Greg, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's is great. It's a place that I've been shopping for years. Since we moved back, it's the only place I'd go if I knew that I needed to buy a gift, if I needed to get something important for my family or for my wife. Bromberg's is the place for me. And I know you guys will feel the exact same way. When you walk in the door, you'll have a different feeling, a different sense of comfort, knowing that their sales staff's going to go the extra mile to make sure you get what you want for the budget that you want it for, and to have everything that you could possibly want within that gift. Know that it's coming from a responsibly sourced place, like a natural diamond that is responsibly sourced, that supports communities all over the world. So go and discover the latest natural diamond jewelry by visiting Bromberg's in Mountain Brook Village and at the Summit. You can also shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, when we come back, top 3 head coaches that we think have the best chance to win their first national championship in college football. We'll do that right after this for our top 3 next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Monday, January 27th, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We get to our top three each and every morning at this time. Sometimes sports, not always sports, can have to do with a lot of different things. I have no idea what celebrity birthdays are today. John?
Probably for the best.
You don't care?
It depends on the celebrity.
Do we know what day it is?
It's the 27th.
Yeah.
Not important.
Monday.
National
I've gotten
Day
used to.
of-
I know what day of the week it is now. Yeah, that malaise of Christmas is gone.
That is fair. Last week was the first week that I felt like I actually knew the days of the week. Oh,
Days
how
of the
fast they
week.
go. I was going to try to find it. National Bubble Wrap Day.
Okay. Feels like that would have been
Bubble
maybe
wrap?
closer to Christmas.
That's what it
Okay.
says.
All right.
And the reason given for that is last Monday of January. Is that it? Is there some sort of shipping importance that happens on that day? I'm not fully aware.
Definitely.
Feels like it would either be around Christmas or spring for cleaning, or Christmas when you're wrapping stuff up.
Last Monday of January, guys, get your packages out.
Okay. All right.
Also, National Chocolate Cake Day.
Oh, you buried the lead there.
I'm not a massive fan.
Really?
There are a lot of other cakes I'd rather go with than chocolate. But not saying I'd turn it down, specifically right now.
Forever.
I'm about to say, when have you ever turned it down since you're such a hater? And it's,
There have been times like, no, I don't need a chocolate cake.
I'm with you. Chocolate cake doesn't do anything for me. I strongly prefer, like, I don't know, some type of vanilla cake, wedding cake, anything that's not. Chocolate's a little too decadent for me. So I'm with you. Same team.
Wow, chocolate's bougie. Well, okay.
Super bougie.
Mozart's birthday today,
Makes sense.
which I do think sometimes is kind of foolish. Is it still their birthday if they're not alive?
I think it is.
Still counts.
Yeah,
I mean-
they were still born on that day.
They were born on that day, but just okay. The problem with doing these celebrity birthdays nowadays is they give you all these YouTube, Instagram people. None of us have heard of any of them. Nobody knows who Lily Christina is. TikTok star.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's about to
Who?
have a job, apparently.
Have to
Wow.
move that over.
Got him.
Move it to another platform. Do you know Mozart's full name?
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Wow. Congratulations. That's impressive. Bailey Zimmerman's birthday today.
Yeah, the Western Kentucky quarterback. Set all the records.
Zappy. Bailey Zappy.
That's not his nickname?
It's not him.
Oh,
no.
Is
Okay.
Bailey Zimmerman a
Then I'm out.
TikToker?
Bailey
Do we
Zimmerman,
call him TikToker? Is that what we're supposed to call him?
Sure. Yeah, you can. Bailey Zimmerman, a country singer, by the way. Maybe
Okay.
the most non-country name I've heard for a country singer, by the way. But sounds more like a travel baseball player.
A bit, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Either way.
Yeah, definitely in center field.
All right, so top three, we went with top three college football coaches that we believe have the next best chance to win their first national championship. A couple folks coming in on Twitter first. Adam Myers, next three to win a title: Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer. Big Corgi Boss goes Kalen DeBoer, Lane, fourth down Kiffin, and Steve Sarkisian. Special Ed tweets in, until there is a salary cap, the SEC schools other than Texas, Texas A&M, and Georgia will get left behind. We don't have the alumni-based population, financial demographics these other schools have. For every Jimmy Raines, we have Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, etc. have 20. 20? Well, Southern California should be winning titles every year then. They have like second or third most billionaire graduates of any school in the country. Why is
Didn't we just do
why is
this?
USC not rolling it in? Rutgers has more living alumni than every other school except one or two. Why are they not winning Big Ten titles? It's a little more than that, I do believe. All right, so Greg, your top three coaches that are up next, you think have the best chance to win their first national championship?
Steve Sarkisian would be number one for me. I think he's in a really, really good spot. Like everyone says Lane Kiffin. I'm gonna tell you very honestly, I don't know if the whole annual portal recycle mode is going to lead the titles. I love his quarterback coming up this year. So I think that's a real shot. But I'm not going to have him on this list. I'm going to go Sarkisian 1, Dan Lanning at Oregon 2. And then number 3 is a little bit tougher. I will go Mario Cristobal.
Okay. I actually went the same first two as you. I went Sark, Lanning, and then Kalen DeBoer at 3. I think I've made it pretty clear what kind of coach I think Kalen DeBoer is. You give him a brand like Alabama behind it. And the guy was in a national championship game at Washington. We have not seen Washington compete for a ton of national titles. And I understand that it was only 9 wins in year one. But I think when he gets that roster a little bit more to his liking, he's going to be in the mix for that. And I would probably go James Franklin next. He would be like kind of first off my list with an Elko right after that. When you put the resources behind what he has and what I believe for him to be as a coach, that's the other ones that I considered on my list. John?
I have basically the exact same one as a first tweeter put in. I had Dan Lanning ahead of Steve Sarkisian as 1 and 2. I have DeBoer at 3, and just on the outside looking in, I've got Elko and then Franklin.
Okay. Crystal Ball's a good one.
Franklin's hard to get on board with because of his inability to have his team in a position to win some of those big games. But if you look at his roster this year, like their roster is as coiled and as prepared to go win it all this year as anyone. So this is a massive year for him, I think, especially with what they just spent on a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that yet. There will be a new defensive coordinator in Penn State and at Ohio State. And we'll talk about that on the other side. I almost thought about Franklin in my top 3 just because he's proven he can be really close. As you stated, Greg, the roster is going to be there this year. I think one of the concerns that I have is, and maybe not first round talent, maybe not top 10 talent in the NFL draft, but think about the good talent that they've had leave the last couple of years and go be successful other places. That concerns me a little bit about just kind of where they are from an NIL perspective. And obviously they're in good shape because they keep their talent and they've been able to go get some other talent that's helped them out. But that worries me a little bit, that there have been players who have gone and helped other programs be successful that they haven't been able to keep in there. And we just saw Ohio State, one of the main reasons they did it was that talent retention with their NIL program.
Yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying. But then again, man, talent retention's big. Don't get me wrong. I think talent retention's really big. But I think it's really more about high school recruiting and development. So that, like you said, if I think it's about high school recruiting and development, talent retention is the biggest. Now you look at some of the guys that Ohio State's been able to go plug and play. That's helpful. But the culture is what led Ohio State to winning a national championship this year. You can say the talent all you want. Like there's a lot of teams with talent, but the culture, I think, was significant and played a pretty significant role in how things went for them.
All right. So is there an outlier, kind of a long shot guy that you wouldn't feel super comfortable doing this with and saying this for, but you just kind of feel like, man, for some reason, I feel like there's an outside chance that guy could find a way to get it done?
Mike Norvell?
Yes. Mike Norvell had an undefeated season a couple years ago.
I'm not saying he will, but
they just had more inches of snow in Tallahassee than he had wins last year.
Correct. And you remember how that program used to be before Bobby Bowden got there. If he can get that right, that conference and that team is in a position to be able to make some noise in the playoff. I don't know if he can, but in theory, just like with James Franklin, ultimately, I don't think he will win it all, but I think he can. He will be in the position to. I just think James Franklin will always fall on his face. Mike Norvell, in theory, can.
Okay.
I got one for you, and you're going to love it. Rhett Lashley.
He's in the playoff year one in a Power 5 conference. I think on the surface, it's easy to push back against. You could say experience or amount of big games he's been in as a head coach, but man, he's got the guys behind him. They obviously are ready to spend. They're obviously willing to go find the people who will back them to do the things necessary to, one, be in a position to compete and then go help compete. So I actually don't hate it. He was one of the guys that popped into my mind when I threw that out there as far as like long shot picks, guys that are maybe on the outside looking in that potentially could end up be there. But I don't hate that really at all.
I knew you wouldn't. I knew you'd love it. It's because in today's era and access, that's part of the reason why I like Mario Cristobal. In the ACC, you can get there. You can get the upward mobility and getting to the finish line into the playoff feeling good is really high. It's like you're running a gauntlet to get to that point.
How important, or is it at all important to you that guys are either in proximity to a lot of talent, which we've seen not be near as important, be very different, or be in a place where transfer portal kids are going to come back to. Texas, Florida, places like that, like Mobile.
Big. Real big.
Yeah, I think that helps in today's college football. So we'll be back with more Talk More Championship Sunday next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, hour number 2 underway. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Championship Sunday, we can get back into that. 800-239-9569. You want to get in, talk. Washington, Philadelphia. Bills, Chiefs. We mentioned it a little bit earlier in the show. Haven't gotten into Alabama-Auburn basketball just yet. Jay Bilas was on the call for Auburn, Tennessee over the weekend. He'll join us at 9 o'clock. We'll hit that one. You talk about a different style basketball game. You talk about one that what would be next in line from a rock fight? Like a tortoise fight?
Like
a sloth duel? I mean,
sloth duel.
That thing was in molasses. I mean, it was physical. It was brutal. But listen, it was competitive. I enjoyed it. It was still fun to watch. It's just, it was very different than what you get from a lot of high-end college basketball games in today's game. 53-51, Auburn gets the win. I think they win 8 minutes without a three-pointer, and then it was like 13 minutes where Jani Broome was the only player that had a three in the game. Tennessee shoots 31%, 17 of 54 from the floor, just 4 of 22 from three. Auburn shoots 31%, 3 of 20 from behind the three-point line. Obviously, a massive one came from Miles Kelly on a Broome either miss or block at the end where he's able to kick it out to him to give Auburn the lead, and then they're able to hold on. I think it's a huge win because Jani Broome comes back. He obviously wasn't 100%. I didn't get the feeling from Bruce Pearl on Friday, Greg, that it felt like he was going to play or really get a chance to play. It was kind of a game time decision. Bruce Pearl tells Bilas and those guys he's going to get out there, see how it feels, try to kind of give it a go. And nonetheless, he does. They don't win that game without him, in my opinion. I thought Broome was fantastic off the bench. 33 minutes, 7 of 19, 1 for 3 from three, 13 rebounds, 16 points, blocked 4 shots. I mean, he was the main difference in the game. And even though he wasn't 100%, he made a lot of things happen down low.
Yeah, and I think when you look at just the emotional toll that it can take when your best guy is unavailable, it felt like there was a different energy level. It feels like that can have a bit of an impact. Just knowing that presence is there I don't think they win that game without Jani Broome. I don't care where he's at from a percentage standpoint of being good, healthy, feeling good, what have you. If he's at 72%, who cares? I think his presence definitely uplifted the performance in general. Like you said, bit of a rock fight, not one that you want to, DVR and watch over and over again. But I thought that was a gutsy win, if nothing else. And Tennessee's going to make it that way sometimes anyways, right? I thought that was a pretty gutsy win.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. Very. And so Alabama gets a win over the weekend against LSU. Some real question marks around that game. We'll come back to that one a little bit later in the show. 80-73. Crimson Tide get to 17-3. Auburn moves to 18-1. Championship Sunday. Our Super Bowl is now set. Philadelphia Eagles set a franchise postseason record with 55 points. Set a franchise postseason record with 32 as the margin of win in the playoffs. They rushed for 7 touchdowns. That has not been done in a championship game since 1940 when the Bears beat Washington 73-0 in the NFL championship game. 55-23, just a dominant performance by Philadelphia. And the Chiefs hold on against the Buffalo Bills at home. They're undefeated at home this year, 32-29. Chiefs 15-2 will move on to their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl and try for the three-peat. Dave in Hoover wants to talk Championship Sunday. Welcome into the show, Dave. How are you?
Hey, guys. Yeah, I was wondering how that Georgia front 7 for Philadelphia is going to do against Jaden Daniels since they really kind of had his number back in that SEC championship game. But I heard something yesterday. I'm in the car, and it was when they called Washington for encroachment or offsides like 3 times in a row, right? What's the guy's name? Voodoo or Voodoo? He went over the top a couple of times. I mean, you think about it, what do you got to lose, right? Where are they going to move the ball? 3 inches?
Yeah.
But the official made the announcement that the officiating crew reserves the right to award the offense a touchdown if it happens again.
Yeah, I had not. I haven't heard that. I know what you're talking about, and I don't know. I did not know that was a real rule. I'll be perfectly honest.
Me neither.
I didn't either. I've played football for 10 years, obviously not at your level. I played from Sandlot to high school, but I'd never heard that
before until yesterday. Literally, not one time had I ever heard that.
Right. Well, it's like, what is it, like
I
a
love
delay
it, though.
game thing? Oh, yeah. But, I mean, can you blame the guy? You go over the top,
No.
Move it. Okay, move it 3 inches. Okay, next time you go over the top, you jump the count. Well, you move it 1.5 inches. What do you got to lose?
I would say if you're that official, Dave, you probably have a lot to lose. I wouldn't want to be that guy. I'm just going to be honest with you. I would not want to be the guy that just awarded a team a touchdown with not actually scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. But they've had enough, you can tell, All right, guys, enjoyed it.
Absolutely. It's just that's one that I think a lot of us did not know was real, did not think was real. But man, can you imagine being the guy that actually, if you're Sean Hockley and you just say, oh yeah, by the way, we're giving Philadelphia a touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I'm just going to say, don't want to be that guy.
No, I don't think that'd be a very popular place to be in. But the only thing that could have made it a little bit more unpopular is if that game was being played in Washington, D.C. Imagine giving them a touchdown and announcing it to the home crowd.
Ooh, you thought the stuff rained down in Austin when Georgia was there.
Ooh, yeah.
That would be very uncomfortable. So yeah, I didn't know that was a rule. Had you ever heard that before?
Never.
Anything like that?
No, I did not know that was real. I'm going to be honest. I don't feel like we've watched a lot of football, specifically combined, but there did not know. There are several instances in the NFL rulebook where an official can award a score. First comes in Rule 3, Section 23, Article 1. A penalty is imposed upon a team that has committed a foul and may result in loss of down, loss of yardage, an automatic first down, a charged timeout, a loss of playing time, withdrawal or disqualification of a player, extension of a period, the award of a score, or a combination of the proceeding. So you can give somebody a touchdown and kick a guy out of the game.
Love that.
At the same time, just get him out of there.
Get him out.
Another
Gotta
instance
go.
can be found in Rule 11, Section 2, Article 1.5 of the rulebook, which states a touchdown can be scored when the referee awards a touchdown to a team that has been denied one by a palpable unfair act. I mean, you talk about a judgment call.
Yes.
Not only now are you making the judgment call on an actual penalty, you're taking the next step to say that my judgment is that said penalty prevented team from scoring a touchdown. Therefore, you raise your hands in the air 6 points.
Yes.
Good luck after that.
Have fun. I think that'd be a tough one to wrap your head around there.
And if you're wondering how this sounded yesterday, this was via the broadcast yesterday on Fox of said act.
At this point. Well, interestingly enough, you got a situation here. If these are deliberate, and you heard Sean Hockley say that it could lead to an unsportsmanlike conduct call, it could also lead to awarding a score if it happens multiple times like this. So we'll hear what Sean has to say.
Encroachment, defense number 93. Washington has been advised that at some point the referee can award a score if this type of behavior happens again. For now, it's a replay of second down.
Mike, that's unbelievable.
Also, I'll throw this out there with that. If there was a place on planet Earth outside of some of these soccer venues, I would say they might rank ahead of this. I mean, when you've got flares and Molotov cocktails coming out of your stands, that's a little different. I'll give them the edge on that one. But as far as American sports are concerned, this is the place that I wouldn't want to do that. Just saying. This is the place that.
Correct, yes.
You don't want to award a different team a score. Now, of course, this would have been the home crowd getting their way.
Still.
But
yes,
that's the place that you don't want to roll the dice on something that has maybe, I don't know, has it ever happened?
I don't know, but if I mean, I think that one point they not only booed Santa Claus, but I think they've thrown batteries at people on the field.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll probably avoid that.
Booed Michael Irvin when he broke his neck, I think. So
we need to get Sean Hockley a helmet, perhaps. What if all the officials had to wear like John Olerud helmets for their down there in case of flying objects?
By the way, if I'm wearing a helmet to avoid getting hit by batteries, go ahead and give me the ear flaps. I'll take the switch hitter ear flaps batting helmet. I don't want the Olerud helmet.
No question.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll protect the ears on that one also. Yeah. It's I don't know many people that heard that on the broadcast and said to themselves, "Oh yeah, the old
I knew that
the
rule.
old award a touchdown rule." Yeah. Seen that one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's Royal Payne makes a great point via Twitter, saying this rule probably instituted with things like players coming off the bench to make a tackle in mind. People too full of Bama, so to speak. Yeah, if you were to get a player off the bench on a breakaway touchdown, I would think that would be one where you would say, we're going to go ahead and award him 6 here. Like, I don't think Tyreek Hill was playing DB and going to be able to catch up there. So touchdown, other team. So, and yeah, Big Corgi Boss asked the same thing. You see the video of the Bama player coming off the sideline. Yeah, that would be the one that you would look at and say, okay, yes, we'll give you that. Carter McInnes tweets in, believe that rule is only NFL and can apply to blatant repeated PI in the end zone. That'd be another area that Well, first off, probably only Buffalo is the only team that continues to throw fades near the goal line. So not many.
They almost got close to touching one of them yesterday.
It was egregious, in my opinion, specifically with a big physical quarterback that has capabilities of running the football. But nonetheless, yes, that would be another area where if a team continued to throw the ball in the end zone, you just shove receiver before he gets there. Now, I would also probably question said team that continued throwing fades when half the distance to the goal is essentially an inch or two movement of the football, and you continue throwing it to a receiver to have pass interference calls wardened against you. But either way, it could be another area which you would look at it and say, yeah, that's we're going to go ahead and give you 6 on that. But I didn't know that was a real thing. That was a good call by Dave because I had kind of forgotten about it when I heard it yesterday. I almost blew past it for a second and didn't think it was real. And then you heard the broadcast crew about to go in on it a little bit further. When they spent more time on it, I was kind of like, well, hold on. Is that real? They can just say touchdown and give it to him? And yes, it is a real thing. Which the good news was for the officiating crew yesterday is you didn't have to award Philadelphia touchdowns because they seemingly scored on every possession. So
it felt like it. But also at the same time, can we just eliminate the Bush push or the tush push or the brotherly shove or whatever the heck we're calling it? Can we just get rid of that? Like it's a bad play. It's rugby. If I want to watch rugby, I'd watch rugby, but I don't. I want to watch football. I want to watch strategy. Like you should not be able to push your teammate across the goal line. You shouldn't be able to do that. That is illegal. That is illegal. If when they get stood up and the offensive linemen are chasing it down, they push them 6 yards forward, I'm fine with that if they're in the scrum. But if it's an organized play designed to push your ball carrier across the line to gain and or goal line, it should be eliminated. It is bad football. It is not fun to watch.
I won't argue that. Fun to watch. I won't argue that.
So, like, if we are in the entertainment business, why do we continue to allow this thing to happen? Explain this to me. It's not a fun play to watch.
Do you want the tush push banned from the National Football League? Saban,
yes.
Do you view it the same way? You have made your point abundantly clear. I don't feel like there's any.
I want to make sure that you know where I stand.
So let's get a little technical here with this. What aspect? Because from a rules perspective, now you can't just say you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be some sort of an underbelly or workaround that people are going to find. What aspect of it would you have stated in the rule book that is now illegal? Is it the lining up behind the quarterback for the sneak? Like, no quarterback cannot have any assistance from behind?
Any play that is designed to push a player beyond the line to gain is illegal. Will result in a 10-yard penalty.
I mean, I could literally see H-backs lining up in the A-gaps, and when the ball is snapped, kind of looking to the left and to the right, sort of pulling the quarterback in.
Right.
If they had the opportunity to do that.
You can't pull. Pulling's already illegal.
Assisting somehow, somewhere. I just feel like there'd be some sort of a workaround. I don't love it. I don't love the play. I have always felt like it would be, if you had to remove that, I feel like there are other plays you're going to have to remove. Would you be in favor of any quarterback sneak in general being removed?
No. Quarterback sneak's a necessary play.
You just feel like
I don't have a problem with QB sneak.
The extra push from behind what needs to go.
Yeah, if you get there on your own, by all means. Like, that's phenomenal. You get there on your own, that's great. But getting pushed from behind and having that many guys that are pushing up against something and the quarterback's driving his legs and the quarterback's basically floating in thin air, it should be illegal. I think it's easily taken out of the game. If you mean to tell me that we can no longer land on quarterbacks, we can no longer land, like literally, if you breathe on the quarterback wrong, it can result in a 15-yard penalty. But you're telling me that we are going to stack the deck so significantly that we are going to line up guys in short yardage situations. The hardest yard to gain in any level of football is the yard between the 1 yard line and the goal line, or the yard between the 1 yard to go on fourth down and the first down marker. Like, that is the hardest yard to gain. And we have completely allowed teams to just eliminate that as a strategical play. It is no longer strategic. It's sheer ridiculousness. And it's not hard to outlaw, I don't think. They've talked about it forever. Like, you know what's hard to outlaw? When you're flagging guys for hip drop tackles. Like, they've done that.
Yeah, and I still think that that's a lot more difficult to judge, per se, not necessarily than the
Correct.
tush push, but then a lot of other things that are put in place, because it feels like there are plays that are 90% what they would deem a legal tackle, and then the legs pulled through at the very last second, and all of a sudden you could deem that a hip drop tackle. That one is beyond confusing to me either way. So Rod tweets in, Greg makes no sense. If you end the tush push, then you have to end all pushes on all plays. I think he actually said that earlier, that being able to push at certain points in times from a momentum or progress standpoint would also need to be put in place, right?
I'm good getting rid of all pushes. If it eliminates the tush push, I'm fine with it. I got no problem whatsoever. And part of the reason why, because one, it's dangerous. Guys are cleaning up around the pile. I mean, how many times have you seen guys getting flagged, going and cleaning up around the pile and trying to push and stuff like that? Like, that's happened a bunch.
Saw a Notre Dame lineman in the playoffs get hit, and the play was not over, and he came in and plucked a guy, which I'm fine with. If you're standing around the pile and the play's not over, you deserve to get hit. Sorry,
Yes,
I'm keeping you
from
pushing my guy back the other way.
Exactly. I don't have any problem with it. But I would like to kind of get rid of maybe all of that. Like, if it gets rid of the tush push, fine. Like, I'll throw out like the extra 4 yards I'll gain every other game when an offensive lineman pushes my running back at the end of the play. I'm fine with that.
All right. Do you want to see the tush push banned from the NFL? A poll question up now at Mac and Cube. You can text in 205-834-9450. It also, in a sense, feels unstoppable, which then asks the question, or deems the question of, why don't teams, because they also don't feel like they get just 1 yard every time. It's usually like 2 or 3. I want to see a team come out and just run tush push the whole game.
Yeah, you can't stop it.
Just grind yards out. Second and 7, 3rd and 4, 4th and 1, first down. 2nd and 8, 3rd and 6, 4th and 2, first down.
It'd be awesome. A game would be over in like an hour and a half.
Less than that. I feel like there might be 2 possessions in the whole game. The TV networks will lose their minds. When are you going to get all those commercials in?
Jeff
No
Monken
idea.
is listening to this like the big dude rubbing his hands, listening like, oh, whoa, we can do this.
Well, here's the part of that is, I think it could work, and I think most people would say, oh, that's classless, or that's high school Harry. We're not going to do that. Well, then why is it on short yardage to do it? What's the difference? So we'll continue that conversation. Come back to Championship Sunday yesterday. The Chiefs are looking to make history. Can they pull it off against this Philadelphia team? We'll discuss right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. 8:23 Monday, January 27th on Jocks 94.5. Top three today. Who's next up to win their first national championship in college football? Your top three head coaches that you think have the best chance to get that done next. Talking championship Sunday as well. We'll get into Auburn, Alabama basketball from over the weekend. A little bit of controversy with Alabama hoops and what's happening with Mark Sears. We'll discuss that as the show continues. Jay Bilas will be with us at 9 a.m. You can always listen online, jocksfm.com. The app is in your app store, iPhone, Android. Download that for free. In Montgomery, Sports Radio 740. In North Alabama, Talk Radio 730 AM, 103.9 FM. Also, you can watch live on YouTube every day. Search Jocks 945.
Bill Smith Buick GMC is the GMC Dealer of the Year, the very best. You'll be so glad when you get them and you go and see Andy Cole and Jonathan Yeager, short drive up to Coleman. You'll see what I'm talking about. The deals that they have on the lot are off the charts good. You're going to be really pleased with the experience that you have when you go and shop with Bill Smith. They're the GMC Dealer of the Year for a reason, the four-time national champion in the last 4 years. They've won 7 national championships overall. It's a dynasty. And lucky for us, they're a short drive up I-65, exit 310, Highway 31, right up there in Coleman. You can go get yourself a GMC Yukon Denali for $10,000 off the sticker price. You get it for just over $80,000. That's $10,000 off. Most places are marking those cars up, and you're able to get them for $10,000 off if you go and shop at the dealer that sells more GMCs than anyone in the entire Southeast, and the GMC Dealer of the Year. It's Bill Smith Buick GMC.
All right. 800-239-9569. You want to get in and talk NFL championship Sunday? Big Corgi Boss tweets in again. In our question of, do you want the tush push banned from the NFL? Currently, 56% say no. Who cares? Bama don't play no daggum NFL. ROLLTIDE, son. So, got that going for us.
Okay, then. I guess
like
Vanderbilt's
that.
full of NFL people, and Oklahoma's full of NFLers too.
Two-gun Corky tweets.
Why do you got to
in.
stoop so low? Georgia has NFL guys. LSU has NFL guys. Why you got to be a hater?
Imagine telling a lineman 50 years ago we would ban a quarterback sneak in 2025. Guy would maul himself.
Can you maul yourself?
I mean, imagine telling Deacon Jones that if you landed on a quarterback when you sacked him, that would be a penalty in most cases.
With all of your body weight.
Or any of your body weight usually ends up being a penalty somehow, some way. A lot of things in football are unfortunate now.
What do you mean I can't slap them with my palm on their helmet?
I don't like it. I don't necessarily watch it and say, oh, that has to be banned. But I do think that there are some aspects of it that are just I think I am more along the lines of what you said earlier, Greg, that it's kind of a dumb play. It's not an entertaining play. Now, does that mean it should be banned? Maybe not. I don't know. But the Chiefs are looking
They
to
do stuff all the time that's, in my opinion, dumb. Like some of the quarterback protection stuff is ridiculous. All right, you hit a guy low, totally get it. We're fine with that. But I mean, some of the stuff they do when the guys are trying to tip the pass and they got their hand up and it grazes the quarterback's helmet. Like, come on, man. Like, that's not affecting my accuracy on the play. Like, it's ridiculous. I just think that some of the stuff that we have it's so geared towards offensive football that it's ridiculous, man. Like, so you got to give the defense a chance. Like, you can just cite the fact that the play's unfair. I mean, it's just flat out unfair. Like, why do you think they make linemen declare themselves eligible in the NFL? Why do you think they do that? Because if they wore numbers that were like in the 80s, it'd be somewhat unfair. Because guys could just, oh wait, hang on a second. This guy's eligible. Like, oh, number 62 can catch passes now. Like we can throw it to him in the flat. Like, it makes it more fair for the defense to know, hey, this guy's eligible, so we can communicate it out. Like, they do some things for the defense, but it's like 10-1 in favor of the offense. Like, just make it fair.
The Chiefs are looking to record history, and you keep seeing some of these things that Pat Mahomes is doing in the Chiefs. It's the way that they win games, the things that they do to be able to lock games up. It seemingly a lot of times just doesn't matter how the first 50 minutes go. They're gonna find a way. He now has second most playoff wins all time by an NFL quarterback with 17. just behind Tom Brady's 35.
Only needs a double up.
Just behind it. Bills, by the way, have lost 7 straight road playoff games dating back to 1995. The Chiefs have won 17 straight one-score games. That is an underrated, ridiculous statistic.
Yes.
When you think about how many games in the NFL, Greg, are one-score games, how many are tight games, how many times that happens that you have to be the one to make the play late, to secure a win, to go get a win, to take a win, to steal a win, to hold on to a win. You have to be the one to make that play. And 17 straight times Kansas City has done that. It's remarkable what Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs have done.
And especially considering the playoffs, too. I mean, the playoffs, they're all, it feels like, especially as you get, the higher you get, the more likely it was going to be at, a game that's going to go down to the wire. So, yeah, it's pretty remarkable what they've been able to do. It really is.
Patrick Mahomes is 4-0 against Josh Allen in the playoffs. The Chiefs have won 9 consecutive postseason games. They are the 4th NFL team to appear in their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. We are on the brink of massive history. And they would become the first team to win 3 straight Super Bowls if they were to get it done. Now, you think about the fact that they're going to be there, but also what Philadelphia has done. And there are aspects of this Philadelphia team. I mean, listen, there were portions of that Philadelphia game yesterday where, Landon Dickerson has a bad snap. He has to come down to center. There's some communication issues up front. They miss a pressure between miscommunication, he in the back. And it's not like it was super clean for Philadelphia yesterday. And they absolutely dominate Washington in that football game. So I'm not going to say this is going to be their most difficult challenge. I don't even know if it's one of their first or second most difficult challenges, but it ain't going to be easy. But I keep coming back to what I told my children yesterday when they kept asking about who was going to win this game, who was I picking to win the game, because my 2 boys both picked Buffalo. Now, their uncle is a massive Bills fan, and it feels like the entire world under 10 years old has gone from being Patrick Mahomes fans to Josh Allen fans recently. And maybe that was part of the influence. But I simply told them, kids, I ain't betting against Patrick Mahomes. Sorry. It's just not happening.
Kids.
Take that, kids.
Take that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Judge.
But plain and simple. It was just a lot of why. They wanted me to be on board with them. They wanted us to all root for the same team. Why? What is it? And I said, I'm not going against Patrick Mahomes. I'm not doing it. We've seen this play too many times. And by the way, I can think of one guy that made me wrong. And his name was Tom Brady, the guy who I said I would never go against before that. So not doing it. And it doesn't feel like, I'm not going to say that he feels unbeatable, but it just, in these positions, Greg, it is beginning to feel like it can't be done.
I get it. I think Philly's going to win in a couple weeks. But I understand what you're saying. I am more fascinated by the shift that's taken place where everybody was a Chiefs fan to all of a sudden now everybody hates the Chiefs. How the heck did that happen so quickly? Like, I know that there's some Chiefs fatigue. You like to have some things, especially, and look, Mahomes is amazing, but their brand of football is not overwhelmingly exciting right now. It's not. It's a lot of dink and dunk. It's a lot of short passes, a lot of catch and run, getting the ball out so quickly. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's a little bit, it's not the prettiest brand of ball. So why did things shift so much is what I'm trying to figure out.
If you wanted my honest opinion, I think fatigue is a real part of it. I think that there is probably a celebrity
Since when
involved.
do kids get fatigued by teams that win, though?
I don't know if it's necessarily just the kids. I think the kids are influenced by their friends and their family and their parents and other people. So if everybody in the house starts rooting for Josh Allen, a lot of the kids are going to start rooting for Josh Allen. I think there's a celebrity involved that has a lot to do with it, as far as more for the adults of why they don't want to see the Chiefs win. And,
Jackson Mahomes.
That would be one. I wouldn't necessarily label that as a celebrity, but I could definitely see that as being.
I bet his birthday's listed on the website you went to earlier for celebrity birthdays.
Don't know when it is, so can't speak to that. But
it's May 15th. We got some time. Don't worry.
Okay, when it comes up, we'll check that next time in the top 3. But also too, I think a lot of times when people begin, it was like all the Alabama stuff, like it's Bama fatigue, it's Bama fatigue. I just think that I think the vocal minority gets loud in those moments, and that becomes a polarizing topic. Do I think that the majority of the nation is actively rooting against the Kansas City Chiefs? Honestly, I don't. I just think that becomes something that is polarizing, is going to get people talking, is going to get what else are you going to say about it? Hey, man, Chiefs are really good. Hey, man, Patrick Mahomes is really good. Like, there are certain ways that you run out of aspects to discuss it. So then you go to the other side of it. Oh, Chiefs fatigue. Everyone wants to see the Chiefs lose. I mean, I just think it becomes an easy discussion at that point. I just think
it's because they're boring.
I don't think they're boring. I think yesterday's game was boring because
yesterday's game was better than most of their games. I feel
they don't have that downfield guy that they've had before. Like, who's the Tyreek Hill on this team? Travis Kelce.
Well, what I can't figure out is
doesn't stretch the field the way that he used to. That's the reality of it. And also, I think too, they've begun to realize, as maybe the defensive line has gotten better, and maybe the quarterback has had a better understanding of, I can just do these things, and it can be a lot less risky, and we can still go win games. So, like, how many outside of when Moss was there? How often was Brady a down the field quarterback on a very consistent basis?
Touchdown Tommy.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Don't you talk about?
But like, was he hitting Gronk on 40-yard passes down the field in the air on a very consistent basis? No. I mean, it was Edelman over the middle. It was Gronk out in the flat. It was checks to the backs. Like, he did everything he needed to do to win those games. So I just don't view it as boring. It's like I said at the beginning of the show. I thought on both sides, yesterday was the most creative dink and dunk performance I've seen in a long time. Think about the bootlegs, the play actions, the motions, the remotions. I mean, the exits and departures. Like, it was just everything was involved for like a 1 yard past the line of scrimmage. But I think it got to that point because of what that game was and what the opponent was. So, like, why are you going to put yourself in harm's way when you got a D-line that can get to you? You don't really have the 50-50 ball guy down the field. Take advantage of your underneath players that can go make plays. Run the football a little bit. Get your quarterback on the move. I mean, you played the position. How many quarterbacks are rolling out and throwing the ball 50 yards down the field? It's not a very comfortable thing. It's not a high percentage play. So I just think that they went with where the game was more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I got no problem with how they have adapted. I'm not. But guess what? I view the NFL kind of this way, kind of across the board. A lot of it is the dink and dunk, pitch and catch, high percentage, gain 4 yards. That's fine. That's a positive play. Like, that mentality. Like, a lot of the NFL has turned into that. And that's why I don't feel like the NFL's product right now is as good as it once was. Doesn't mean it's not still good. I just don't think it's as good as it once was. Still very much enjoy it. I didn't leave my couch for 7 straight hours yesterday. But do I enjoy it as much as I did 10 years ago? Probably not, if I'm going to be completely honest.
All right. When we come back, there is a pretty big change atop college football. And one side of it doesn't seem to be very happy. We'll tell you who that is, what it's about. Before we come back, Greg, tell our listeners about Shannara Flooring.
Shannara Flooring is great. And Fu, the owner, will go the extra mile to make sure you have what you need and you can be put at ease. Because, look, there's a lot of things to worry about when you're replacing your floors. I understand, will they show up on time? Will they be respectful of your home? Will the job get done right? Because if it's not, guess what? It's a pretty significant adjustment. We've had issues with our floors at the lake, and we had to go in, rip out tile, go back in. I wish I would have gone with Shannara Flooring, but this was years before I met Fu and company, because these guys are the best. Now, I know that if I ever have any problems around my home, if I want to replace some old carpet, if I want to redo some hardwood, if I want to upgrade to hardwood, I'm only making one phone call, and that's to Fu. So when it's time for new flooring, ask yourself, call who? Call Fu. Call them direct at 518-6423, and you can see all the new styles at shinaraflooring.com.
All right. How upset should Ohio State fans be? How happy should Penn State fans be? We'll discuss it next on McElroy Cubelic in the morning. .842, Monday, January 27th, right here on Jocks 94.5. The Penn State football account has now tweeted out the news that they have hired Jim Knowles to be their next defensive coordinator, which is pretty wild to think about because he just had an amazing run, Greg, to lead Ohio State, help lead Ohio State to a national championship. And we know that a couple of those guys on that defensive line are going to be back, but that linebacking core going to be pretty good. The secondary going to be pretty good with what's returning. Yet Jim Knowles is going to head over to Penn State. There's a lot floating around back and forth of what was said as far as to the players, to the staff, of him returning, not returning. 3 years, $9.3 million from Penn State. Like I said, Penn State put a graphic out so we know it's real. It's actually going to happen.
Well,
He's
there you go.
already in Penn State gear, by the way, which is remarkable that he was able to put that on and get a photograph taken. Now, Brett McMurphy if you want to start to talk about, maybe this will help some rivalries in the Big Ten and some things there and give people a lot to talk about in different ways. Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles was asked by the school not to attend the Buckeyes national title celebration while he deliberated his options. Knowles' representation tried to reach a deal with Ohio State the week before the title game and immediately after, but eventual offer was well below the competition, thus leading Knowles to sign a 3-year, $9.3 million deal with Penn State. That's according to Brett McMurphy. So, I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit bold to say you are still our D coordinator. Don't come to the national championship celebration. Hey,
you think that's bold?
That's
just another day. Another day at the office in college football nowadays.
That's on y'all. But Jim Knowles sounds like took that as, oh, cool. You don't want me there. They want me here. Holla. And signed his 3-year, $9.3 million deal with Penn State. Let's start with this. How good of a get is this for Penn State, in your opinion?
I think it's a fantastic get because not only you're taking from your rival, but you're also going and getting a coordinator. And look, this is the third different defensive coordinator in 3 years. Excuse me. This might be the fourth in 4 years for Penn State. I don't recall who they had before Manny Diaz, but they go and they hire Manny Diaz 2 years ago. He then takes the head coaching job at Duke. They go and hire Tom Allen, fresh off his Indiana run. Tom Allen leaves to become the defensive coordinator at Clemson. And then now here's another one. So I believe this is the fourth different coordinator in 4 years, which is an indicator of a few different things. One, James Franklin might be tough to work for. I don't know if it is or not, but that might have something to do with it. But he's done a great job of putting guys in position to go and get big time deals. That's why I think they had to overspend here. And I know for a fact Jim Knowles was in pursuit, or that several were in pursuit of bringing Jim Knowles in to be their defensive coordinator. One school in the SEC, I think, was pretty far down the road, and it just never materialized. So pretty big, pretty important, and pretty interesting to see how this all went down.
It is 3D coordinators in 4 years for Penn State. And Jim Knowles, who did an excellent job at Oklahoma State and then was tasked with sort of bringing like a new attitude, a new demeanor to that Ohio State defense. And I feel like he did it, Greg, because you and I had talked about the 2-3 years before he arrived that there are parts of it that seem to be fading. The take over a game portion, some of the grit, some of the physicality was just, it was absent. It was gone. I don't know another way to say it. And Knowles brought a little bit of that back. Some by design, some by how personalities acted. And now he had great personnel to do it with. No one will deny that. But they had really good personnel before that. Just look at the NFL draft. Guys still went to the league. It's just when you watch them, they didn't operate like some of the groups before them did. So he is a great defensive mind. And there will be people that will say, well, he had elite talent. Okay, fair, but he found a way to get them to make plays. And he found a way to make them play differently than they did before he arrived. And that's the main thing that I look at is how do your groups operate when you're there based on before you were there? And then now is going to be a real test to see how do they operate after you're gone. Because there's a lot of guys in college coaching circles that after they leave, things are different. And to me, that's the ultimate credit to the guy that was there before.
Well, answer me this. If he's not a great coach, then help me understand what exactly happened to Oklahoma State when he left. How have they been defensively the last few years? Things gone good for them?
Not the best.
Been a good team? No, not great, right?
Not the best. I mean,
so it's fine to focus on 4 games at Ohio State where his defense didn't play great. Fine. It's fine to focus on the personnel that he had to work with at Ohio State. But at the same time, I've seen that guy put his defensive players in position to be successful at Oklahoma State and had quite a bit of success there. So I think I would be very cautious in being critical of what Jim Knowles has done in his career. And I'd be highly surprised if he doesn't have a ton of success at Penn State next season.
How much further does this, because we just had the conversation and we'll do it on the other side about Penn State and maybe James Franklin being next up to win that national championship. I want to hear from you when we come back, Greg, of How much further does this push you down that road of maybe believing that James Franklin is the next college football coach to get his first national title? But we're in the middle of flu season. Make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. Removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus. 100 times more effective than standard air filters. 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. Find a dealer near you at Trane.com. It's hard to stop a train. Does this make Penn State's national title chances that much better? We'll discuss it next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. $8:52 Monday, January 27th. Jocks 94.5. Jim Knowles to Penn State. How much further down the path of James Franklin winning his first national championship does this take us? Does it make it that much closer? Do you believe that much more? Could you make the comparison, the contrast to where Ryan Day was and James Franklin is? When Jim Knowles
but if
came to
Ryan
Ohio
Day
State?
won big games, he just couldn't beat Michigan. That was the one thing. I mean, he still won a lot more big games than but then again, Ryan Day was never an underdog. Was Ryan Day ever an underdog outside of a game against Georgia a couple years back?
Not often. No. I mean, not that I can tell.
Yes.
Or not that I recall. So it didn't happen very much, that's for sure. So it does feel like, though, that this is a big get, maybe even an underrated get when you're talking about exactly what this means for Penn State, and possibly what it means for Ohio State. If you're talking about a repeat or being in the mix for another national championship next year. If you're looking for a national championship as far as buying a new home, Gusty Goulas Group can help. Google Gusty Goulas Group and see over 835-star Google reviews. Most agents start marketing after you list with him, not Gusty. He's marketing long before he meets a potential seller. Served more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area. And since 2012, Gusty Goulas Group recognized both nationally and locally as Greater Birmingham, Alabama's #1 team in homes sold. Call 205-542-1996 today. That's 205-542-1996 and start packing. Again, brokered by eXp Realty. Google Gusty Goulas Group or just go to gustygoulasgroup.com today and start packing to find your new home. I do think that it pushes you down that path, Greg, of saying if there were things on the checklist that James Franklin could have go his way, I don't know if I want to say needed to have go his way, but would help in me believing that he was going to get his first national title. This might be something. I don't know if I thought it was going to happen before a week or so ago, but this might be something that you would look at and say, yeah, I'll say that this definitely leans me towards believing that James Franklin could get his first national championship.
I think he could. I mean, this definitely helps. And I think having a guy with an actual national championship ring on his mantle, fresh off a win, I mean, I think this helps a lot. Look, I still think that if they're going to win the national championship at Penn State, they're going to have to be able to go toe-to-toe from a personnel standpoint. And while they've been close in recent years, and that gap has gotten more slim, they have not had the same caliber of player as Ohio State last year and as Michigan for the 3 years that they were dominating the Big Ten. Would you agree? Like, everyone's has all this negative things to say about James Franklin. Say what you want. He's not had the same quality of player. So I don't think that's a fair thing to, all right, well, Clark Lee can't win the big one. Well, he doesn't have the same quality of player in Vanderbilt than they do at Tennessee. So I don't know, like, why hasn't Clark Lee beat Tennessee? Well, because they don't have as many good players. And I know you don't want to think that when you're Penn State, but they don't have as many good players as Michigan had during their run and was Ohio State had last year. So we'll see. I do think it's going to be important, though, for them to be, this is an all-in year. They better go all in. They better go win a lot of big games, because if they don't, it's going to be very tough to spin it in favor of James Franklin.
I would agree with you there. It's a big move for Penn State and could eventually become a massive loss for Ohio State. We're going to go to the hardwood next. Auburn takes down Tennessee at home. Stays at 18-1, will stay as the #1 team in the nation. Jay Bilas was on the call for that game. His thoughts on Bruce Pearl's team. Some controversy surrounding the Alabama basketball team potentially. What does that mean moving forward? We'll discuss that. Continue taking your calls, but talk with Jay Bilas next right here on Jocks 94.5. 9 o'clock hour number 3 underway right here on Jocks 94.5. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Watch live on YouTube. Search Jocks 945. He was on the call for Tennessee at Auburn as well as College Game Day in Auburn over the weekend from ESPN. It's Jay Bilas joining us now on the Buyers Right Hotline. And Jay, what did it say to you about Bruce Pearl's team that they were able to win that style basketball game?
Well, I think they can win any style of basketball game. That was a little bit different than games we've seen throughout the year. Not crazy different, but that was basically an MMA cage fight. If you expected a foul to be called, you were in the wrong building. But it was a great physical contest. But I'm not sure it was indicative of the skill level that those players have offensively. Because if you can, Chaz Lanier of Tennessee is one of the best shooters in the country. If you can grab him off every screen, he's not going to shoot it as well, and not going to have the timing to do it. And the same thing with Miles Kelly or some of these other guys. Really, the only time that there was ever an open shot is if you had something in transition, or it was off an offensive rebound kick out. Other than that, you had somebody in your face, or with two arms around your waist.
How would you assess where Janai Broome is? I mean, I think all of us have been watching, whether it was the shoulder injury earlier, the ankle injury now. How much do you think that ankle is going to be impactful down the stretch based on what you saw in his first game back?
I'm not really sure, honestly, Greg, that when I watched him practice the day before, and he really didn't do all that much. And the way he was walking, he wasn't limping, but you could see he was kind of, using his hip to give that ankle a little bit of extra protection. Right. And I didn't really get to see too much of his lateral movement to see because I think I said to the broadcast, if I were Rick Barnes, I would have put him in a screen roll situation every play that he was in there, just to make him move and make him move laterally. But he handled it fairly well overall. It's just a question of whether it's going to be re-aggravated. And those doctors are great. They're not going to put him in a game and let him play if he's going to cause further damage. But ankles are, you never know when you're going to step on somebody's foot in a game and you're going to have a problem. But he was, if not the difference in the game, he's certainly a difference in the game. And there aren't many guys like him. He's not like an over the rim kind of bouncy athlete, but he's so strong and his timing is so good. He's a remarkable player. I mean, the first time I saw him was at Morehead State, and he put up, gigantic numbers there. He was the best player in that league, best defensive player, best overall player. And you kind of wondered, is all that productivity going to translate to the SEC? And then in Israel a couple of years ago, you kind of saw, okay, it will. And it has sort of beyond, I think, anyone's expectations.
Jay Bilas joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, talking Auburn, Tennessee from over the weekend. Move around to some other SEC teams in just a moment. But first, wanted to get to you. Said you think Auburn can win any style basketball game. Is there you see the minutes that they get off the bench. Broome was one of those this week. He won't continue to be that. But is there a semi-large concern for this team moving forward, be it tournament time, be it just down the stretch of what might hold them back from a league championship or making a deep run in the tournament?
No, I think they're about as complete as you could expect. They've got good depth, and they've got a good balance between, I think offensively, this is the best offensive team Bruce has had at Auburn. And he's, obviously their 2019 team went to the Final Four. They could really score. But this team is unbelievably efficient. I mean, the four guards that he has, I think the worst shooter from three is just a tick under 40%. So you got four guys shooting between basically 39.5 and 45% from three. That's remarkable. And all of them knock down free throws at a high rate. All those guards are 85% from the line or better, including a couple over 90. So you put the ball in their hands late, they're going to be able to deliver from the foul line. And then their big guys are really productive. Dylan Cardwell is not a scorer, but he's such a good rebounder, defender, and lob threat. He puts a lot of pressure on the rim, even though he's not going to make a shot outside of 6 feet. They've got a lot of good things. It's just one of those scenarios where, you get in the tournament and, every team in the tournament can lose in the Elite Eight or the Final Four or something and not reach the national championship game. But I think Auburn's chances, given the schedule they play, they've already won 11 quad one games. I mean, it's absurd how tough their schedule is. It's going to get even tougher going through the last part of the SEC.
It's wild, man. I mean, all the SEC teams at the top of the world is pretty amazing and impressive. I do want to ask you about Alabama. There's like some drama. I think it's a bit manufactured with Mark Sears and how he didn't play in the second half, and some of the comments that Nate Oates is kind of saying. Basically, it doesn't sound like defense is at the top of Mark Sears' priority list, and that's why he wasn't out there. How much should we be reading into this, or is it much ado about nothing?
Probably a little bit of both. I think in the course of one game, when things aren't going well, and if you don't make a change in how you're doing something, I mean, I watch a lot of football. I don't know much about it, but I really enjoy it. But I mean, you could probably say, what was Nick Saban upset at Jalen Hurts in the championship game and went with Tua Tagovailoa? Sometimes you make a change for that game, and it works or it doesn't. But Alabama's not going to win at a high level without Mark Sears. But
right.
When people, so to me, like, this is like the perfect example of people trying to play both sides of things. So on one hand, our people say our culture is soft now. They're just coddling these guys. It's soft. Can't yell at them anymore. Then Nate Oates does something in the course of the game with his best player over, and I don't know all the details of it. I'll find out. But so he does that, and then it's now, there's a problem. Should he have done that? Like what's it going to be? Are you going to coach him hard? Is that okay? Or now we have to have special rules for your best player? Like, what's the deal going to be? I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's just high-level competition. But one thing I know, I think Nate is one of the top 5, and I may be slighting him here by including 4 others, top 5 coaches in the country. And he's got a great balance between coaching the player and the game, and then also using analytics to kind of manage everything. And here's what we want to do, and here's what the numbers say we should do. And then that can't be all of it, but he balances those two things really well. And they won that game, I think, as a result of the decisions that they made as a staff. Now, will that carry the day going on? But I think it sends a pretty good message to the rest of the team that, hey, if I'm telling our best player that he's not going to play if he doesn't do this, what do you think I'm going to do with you? I mean, I think that's pretty good. Now, some people might not agree with it, but we'll see how it works out.
Jay Bilas joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Whether it's Alabama and Auburn, Florida, do you see a lot of separation between any particular group of teams towards the top of the Southeastern Conference?
I mean, there's some separation. Some teams, I think there are a few teams that are more complete. So I think Auburn and Florida are probably the 2 most complete basketball teams. Like, Florida's not quite as good defensively as Auburn is, or certainly Tennessee, which I think has the best defense in the country. But Florida's got great guards. So the matchup of guards when Florida plays Auburn is going to be as good of a matchup of any guard group you're ever going to see. And they can also match each other along the front line because Florida's big guys are strong. They're excellent offensive rebounders. So for Florida, the only thing Florida has to be mindful of, or the main thing they have to be mindful of throughout the season, is they can't turn the ball over. If they get a shot every time down, they're going to beat just about everybody they play. If they get a shot, because they get so many of their misses. And, when you turn the ball over, not to make it too simplistic, but when you turn the ball over, you don't get a shot, so you don't get a chance to make it. You don't get a chance to get fouled, and you don't get a chance at an offensive rebound, which Florida's really proficient in. So that's 3 pretty good things that you're giving up by turning the ball over. And as long as they take care of the ball, that makes their efficiency on the offensive end pretty sky high.
Finally, Jay, as you kind of survey the landscape right now, the SEC is as strong as it's ever been. You just referenced it. But I look at some of the other leagues, and I feel like some are starting to kind of find their footing a bit. I feel like there's a couple. Big 12 is always going to be good. They know when to peak. Feels like the ACC, there's some teams that are starting to emerge that are really, really solid as well. So as we fast forward to the end of this thing, is it going to be I'm not going to say egalitarian as far as the representation in the Elite Eight? There's no way of knowing that at this point. But do you think we're going to look at the end of the year and see a heavy tilt towards one league because of the depth in that league, or do you think it will kind of resolve itself as things move forward?
I think it's probably going to be a little bit of a tilt to the SEC. There's never been a conference like this. So the SEC has put up numbers, both non-conference and up to now, that haven't been matched in close to 40 years. And the last time any conference put up numbers like this, as far as success against the rest of the country, was when I was playing in the ACC in 1984. You know, Michael Jordan was at North Carolina, Len Bias was at Maryland, and that was the dominant conference. Now, Georgetown was the dominant team that year, but the ACC was the dominant conference. But the difference is, Greg, that the ACC was 8 teams. The SEC is doing this with 16. And right. You would think with 16 teams, you're going to have a number of schleps in the conference. It's hard to have 16 teams this good. And I've never seen anything like it. But that doesn't mean that Duke isn't really good, and Houston and Iowa State and Michigan State's playing really well in the Big Ten. But what I would say, and you probably see this in football maybe more so than it's been seen in basketball until this year, but I do think you take some of the teams in some of these other leagues and put them in the SEC, and they'd be middle of the pack. Not Duke, but so Duke is going to sail through the ACC. They'll have a tough game here and there. They have a tough game at Wake Forest, fine. But they have a legitimate shot to run the table in the ACC. They would not do that in the SEC. That would not happen. So are they going to go into the tournament fresher? Or is it going to be, they're untested at this level? I don't think the latter is a big concern. The one concern I'd have in the SEC is there are two things. One is when you get through, if you win the SEC tournament, how much gas are you going to have left in the tank after that? Because winning the SEC tournament is going to be harder than winning the national championship because you're doing it day after day after day and all that stuff, and playing better teams throughout the course of it than you would play in the course of the NCAA tournament. The other thing is, the SEC has been officiated as football this year. Those games, some of those games are football games. Some of them aren't, but some of them are. And that's not going to be the same whistle they get in the NCAA tournament. So they're going to run into a game where the way they've been conditioned to play, they're going to be able to adjust in the course of a game when they've got officials that are coming from the ACC or some other league where the clutch and grab is not allowed as much as it's been allowed in SEC play. We'll see what happens there, but I tend to think that the gauntlet they're going through is going to make them tougher than some of the other conferences are going to be when they get to the tournament.
Jay, if you went top 10, 12, 15 teams, whoever that was, that stylistically in the postseason is going to give you the biggest problems, not the most talented team or the most deeper team, but just how they play, whatever aspect that is, that's going to be the most difficult matchup for anybody they face, who would that be and why?
Are you talking about outside of the league?
It can be SEC, non-SEC, just like who gives you an aspect of their team that nobody sees is going to be just that much more difficult to deal with? Is it a Houston defense? Is it a team from the perimeter? Or?
Yeah, well, Houston's defense is a challenge because they trap a lot of things. So they'll put 2 on the ball off ball screens, and and they really get up into you. So it forces a back dribble. As soon as you pick the dribble up, they're gone. One of them's gone and recovering, and they trap in the post. They call it a monster. Their trap they call monster, but they come with high hands and all that. It's tough for you to see out. They don't let it out on the ball side. So you gotta, anytime there's 2 on the ball, obviously it's going to be, 2-on-1 on the backside. The problem is how do you get it to the opposite side of the floor? You've got to turn and throw it through these gigantic guys that have long arms and they're really aggressive. And so they recover on the flight of the ball, and they're really difficult to play against. And that's why their defense is, along with Tennessee, the best in the country. But in past years, Houston hasn't scored it efficiently or as efficiently as their defense. It's really hard to find basketball teams year after year that are like the best defensive team, and then they're great on offense too. Usually you'll have a team that's great on offense and then not as good on defense. Like I think Kentucky's like that this year. They're great on offense. They're not great on defense. They're not bad, but they're not great on defense. Houston in the past has been great on defense and maybe not quite as good on offense. Iowa State, similarly. This year, Houston they're a much better shooting team than they've been. So they're kind of, top of the heap in defense, and then they're top 10 or 15 in offense. That's national championship caliber stuff. If you're looking at analytics, if you find a team that's top 10 in both offense and defense, you can feel pretty confident that they're going to do well in the tournament.
Jay, we appreciate the time, man. Great stuff. Great job on the call. I thought you called it fair. I thought there was a great description of some of the things taking place, and hope to see you back down in Auburn again soon.
Great to be back with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Jay Bilas of ESPN joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline on the call for Auburn, Tennessee over the weekend. And you think about some of those compliments of the SEC, Greg. Winning the SEC tournament going to be more difficult than winning the national championship. I love the way he laid that out because it's back to back to back to back. It's not, you're not going to go from one weekend to the next. And it makes sense when you think about how deep the league is and how it's structured and how that tournament lays out. It's something that I don't think I had thought about in that way, but it's kind of crazy to think about it in that way.
Yeah, I also feel like that is going to be about as compelling a tournament as we've maybe ever seen, with the depth and the quality. And with us looking at the teams at the top, I would not be surprised if a team gets hot and makes a run, like an Ole Miss. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be so typical in a year like this where you have all these high level programs that are playing so great throughout the regular season, and they stub their toe in the tournament, the SEC tournament, and maybe a team that's, if you were to rank them 1 through 16, a team that's like 8th or 9th ends up going and making a run, like an A&M. Like, nothing would surprise me at this point. It'd be crazy.
No, there's no doubt. So that controversy that Greg mentioned with Alabama, is it real? We'll discuss that on the other side. First, Auburn head coach Bruce Pearl, just recapping that win against Tennessee over the weekend.
But our guys really respected that team, even after the game. They knew they had a great win because they knew they beat a great team. Those are some of the best guards we're going to face. Those guys don't take possessions off defensively. Catches were difficult. Shots were contested. They turned us over 11 times, and they were all almost forced. I'm sure that wasn't a very pretty game on national television because it was so difficult to score. I knew it was going to be low scoring. I knew that offense was going to be difficult. Rick Barnes' teams play the right way. They play the right way. They don't take possessions off. They don't beat themselves. I think at the end of the game, both teams were exhausted, absolutely exhausted. So who, through that exhaustion, could maybe make a shot or make a play?
That was Bruce Pearl just on what that game was. And like Jay Bilas said, it was a UFC fight. It was a cage fight. We talked about it earlier in the show. What's next in line after Rock fight? It was a Donnybrook. And also interesting to hear Jay reference that he believes that the league has sort of been officiated that way this year. How much does that affect SEC teams in the tournament, Greg, if the officiating's not going that way? And they feel like they can go in.
I never thought about that.
They can go in and bang that way. Like I said, but because the way he laid it out, it doesn't sound like most leagues are. So that could hamper an SEC team when they get into postseason play.
Well, what's funny is like I didn't even really think about that, and I've watched the Big 12 and I watched the Big 12 for years, and in particular in Iowa State and Houston, and it's like every time those two teams are playing, it's like a bare knuckle brawl too. You know what I mean? Houston's not afraid to mix it up by any stretch. So I don't know. I think that, yes, the SEC, while some of that is allowed, and the best example, I mean, with it being recency with the performance between Tennessee and Auburn, I don't feel like the SEC, you're allowed to get away with it as much as it is anywhere else in college basketball right now. Like, I feel like other teams, other leagues, it's just as physical. The Big 12 is an example of that. So I don't know. Jay sees it up close more than I do, obviously. But from my impressions watching other places, yes. Is it more physical in the SEC? Sure. But it doesn't mean other teams can't ramp it up from a physicality standpoint as well.
Absolutely. All right. Focusing on Alabama's win against LSU and some of the things that were said after that game. Next, right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Watch live on YouTube. Search Jocks945. 800-239-9569. The situation with Mark Sears, is it a problem? Is it real? Is it somewhat fabricated, as GMAC alluded to when we were visiting with Jay Bilas earlier in the show? Alabama gets the win against LSU over the weekend, and you feel like that was a real positive, and then you kind of go back and look if you were watching it, or you go back and check the box score and see that Mark Sears didn't play the majority of the second half of that game. Before we go into it, Greg, what is your overall take of just 17 minutes for Mark Sears? He was 0 for 5 from the field. Just your overall take of kind of his minutes in the second half, the how and why, I guess.
Well, one, I didn't have a problem with it. I mean, I know that it's weird and people will probably try to make a big deal out of it. I understand all of that, but I am not concerned about a guy not having his best stuff and them opting to go in a different direction. It speaks to the depth. It speaks to the quality of the depth and the fact that, hey, if you're not playing as well as you can play, we have other guys that can play better and that are capable. You're no longer hamstrung to having a great, and look, I don't think this is some indicator that Mark Sears is not a great player. We know he's an All-American candidate. The guy is fantastic, but he didn't have his best stuff the other day. And I think that he's moving into a new role this year, and it hasn't been seamless. There have been some games where he's been great, and there's been some games where he hasn't been so great. I think he's been asked to be a bit of a more distributor as opposed to a volume shooter. And then defensively, he's never been a guy that's elite defensively, but that's okay. I think it's a good thing, frankly, that if you aren't playing well, you can be replaced. It sends a positive message. I think it creates competition within the roster. And I don't have a problem with it at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's. I want to go back 4 days ago. Nate Oates, it's a little bit lengthy, but this is what Nate Oates had to say about his point guard, Mark Sears, just 4 days prior.
For a kid that's from the state of Alabama, that no high majors wanted him coming out of high school, ends up going to a good mid-major program at Ohio U. If you go back and actually look, I don't know, you guys all cover Alabama. I think there was games at the beginning of his career at Ohio where he didn't play or played very few minutes, but I'm pretty sure if you go back and look, he didn't play his freshman year. So to have that and then to end up where he's currently at as a National Player of the Year candidate tells you everything you need to know about his work ethic. He didn't shoot it particularly well his freshman year at Ohio, even though once he got in the rotation, he played pretty well. But he didn't shoot it well. So between his freshman and sophomore year, he essentially locked himself in a gym, turned himself into a shooter. He's now one of the best shooters in the country, and that's through all hard work. So, I'm going to be talking about him for years down the road about what guys are capable of if they're willing to work hard, put the time in, and really do what you need to do. I mean, it takes a lot of work to be this good. So, I mean, you come in, he's going to be in tomorrow. It's an off day tomorrow. I guarantee you he's going to be in getting a shooting workout in. Every day he's in here, wants to go before practice, wants to go back in the afternoon. Sometimes he comes back even again in the evening. Like, for him to score 2,500 points, being from here, nobody wanted him at high school, doing what he did for his first 2 years at Ohio, and then coming back here and then having a career, even his first year here. I mean, we were number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament. He was our second leading scorer. I don't know if anybody expected him to be that good right out of the gate. I mean, Brandon Miller, second overall pick in the draft, been killing it in the NBA these last 2 years, was the leading scorer. Mark was our second leading scorer that year. So he came in immediately able to score. He's really progressed as a point guard. I mean, these games where, I'm not sure what he ended up with assists tonight. Yeah, he had 7 assists, 0 turnovers tonight. So he's had multiple games where he's had really high assist numbers, very low turnover numbers. His growth as a point guard and making the right reads, taking care of the ball, that's where he's grown the most this year. And I thought his effort on defense for the most part this year has been significantly better. I think we need him to lead. Thought he could have been better in the second half today, but if we're talking about his 2,500 points, his offensive game, he's grown a lot. And I couldn't be happier for a kid, especially from the state of Alabama here at his home state school at Alabama. So
That was 4 days ago. Nate Oates discussing his point guard, Mark Sears. This is Nate Oates discussing Mark Sears after the LSU game.
Yeah, I mean, same response Cliff gave us in the second half. Be all about doing the stuff we need to win basketball games.
So Nate Oates then asked if he wants to see more from Sears as a leader after the game.
Yeah, I mean, same response Cliff gave us in the second half. Be all about doing the stuff we need to win basketball games.
All right, so moving on from that. Greg, you say this still just is maybe much to do about nothing. Is this going to be a problem for this team moving forward, or?
I'm not worried about it. I mean, personally, I think everything's going to be fine. In a perfect world, yeah. Would you like for your best player to be your best defender and your best scorer? Yeah, it would be amazing. But who am I to wonder what Nate Oates is going to do? The guy has pressed all the right buttons and has done a remarkable job. I think, and it is a little, look, this is going to be a gauntlet of a season, man. This is a hard year in the SEC where every single game is a grind. So if they play up to the level of the competition and occasionally down to the level of the competition, it doesn't really surprise me. But it is what it is. And I think that Nate Oates has earned enough credibility with me in his ability to get the most out of his team and the most out of his players that I'm not at all concerned about it. And if Mark Sears didn't have his best stuff because he wasn't shooting it well and it was affecting how he's playing on the defensive end, then so be it. Out of there. I mean, next man up mentality. So still had 8 guys to roll. It's not like they were playing with 6. So I don't think it was the worst thing ever to maybe have a game like that.
Okay. So we'll see moving forward if this is an issue. 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. You can tweet into the show if you think this is going to be something Alabama is going to have to deal with, potentially being a little bit of an issue moving forward. You think about what's coming up next for the Crimson Tide as well. It's not going to get a whole lot easier. You're at number 14, Mississippi State, Georgia at home, at Arkansas, at Texas. Then you get Auburn at home, at number 22, Missouri, number 9, Kentucky comes to Coleman, number 14, Mississippi State visits Coleman. You're at number 6, Tennessee, number 5, Florida, at number 1, Auburn. I mean, it's 3 top 6 teams in the final 3 games of the year. The schedule's not going to ease up a whole lot, and you want to have a little bit more depth, and you want to make sure mentally and emotionally everybody's on the right page as you approach March. So if you're going to do something like this, Greg, and you feel like this needs to be done, I would probably agree that now would be the time to do that, to try to find out a way to get everybody on the same page and have an understanding of where it needs to be moving forward.
100%. And I think it's great. I'm not at all worried about it, not at all concerned about it. I think that good could come of it. It puts everybody on notice, man. Like, that's a good thing. When everybody's put on notice, that's positive. Hey, our best player, our All-American candidate, a guy that scored 2,500 career points, didn't play a minute in the second half of this football game when it was game on the line. That's a great message to send. I will always support that. And look, how will Mark Sears respond to it? Will he respond positively and be back and in the gym like Nate Oates just described and given his team a great effort on the defensive end in the next game out? Or will it have a lingering effect? I mean, that is something that we won't know, but we will find out. So I think he'll respond really well to it. I'm pretty optimistic about it. So we'll see how it goes.
If I had to guess, I would say that this ends up being a net positive for Mark Sears and for Alabama. But time will tell, and not overly concerning at this exact moment. So, all right, we'll move on from college basketball over the weekend. It was, by the way, just overall a pretty interesting weekend in the SEC. That Auburn game was Auburn-Tennessee game. Obviously a fantastic matchup, just an absolute battle back and forth. Florida takes down Georgia 89-59. Vanderbilt knocks off Kentucky 74-69, and they rush to court again. The fines from Vandy stacking up this year. Texas takes down Texas A&M 70-69. Mississippi State takes out South Carolina in overtime 65-60. Mizzou knocks off Ole Miss 83-75, and Oklahoma knocks off Arkansas 65-62. Still just one win in SEC play for John Calipari at Arkansas. So another big weekend of SEC hoops. More coming up this week, as obviously we'll keep you locked in on that. Kentucky is at Tennessee on Tuesday. South Carolina is at Georgia. Oklahoma is at Texas A&M. But we want to go back to football. Championship Sunday. What does this Super Bowl matchup now look like? Is there a team you lean towards, a team you favor? We'll discuss that right after this on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Going to go back to Championship Sunday, talk a little NFL. You mentioned earlier, Greg, kind of just threw it out quickly. We didn't spend a lot of time on it. You think Philadelphia gets this win in the Super Bowl?
That's where I'm at right now. Definitely, I reserve the right to adjust my thinking, but that's my lean at the moment. Do you have a lean?
I've said it on this show. I've said it previous times. I'm not going against Mahomes. Sorry, I'm just not doing it. Team just feels like they find a way
in a week.
I don't feel like going back and watching some Kansas City or Philadelphia film is going to really force me to change that opinion. Do I think that top to bottom Philadelphia has the more talented roster? Yes. More weapons offensively? I do. I tell you this, I would be very concerned about some of the protection issues Philadelphia was having. Now, they had success on the ground, And they had success with poor tackling from Washington, which was some of the worst I've seen in the NFL in a while. But they also had some protection issues. And against this front, that is a big concern for the Philadelphia Eagles for me.
I would think that that's going to be one of the more unique parts of this game is I'm not sure. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I really don't know. I do know it's going to be very difficult, extremely difficult for the offensive line for the Chiefs to hold up against that defensive front. That defensive front has gotten to the point where they are the real deal. I don't know how you feel about it, but man, Jalen Carter at times has become unblockable. I mean, we saw a sack from the big fella, Jordan Davis, yesterday.
Yeah, nice sack.
Just
nice
walking it back. Really nice sack. I mean, a little swim up and under outside and beating him to the inside. Like, that was a good move for a 340-pounder. So I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen from that group's growth and development over the years.
No, and there were some protection breakdowns for Kansas City also, and that would be a concern with that Philly front because those guys they can get after you in different ways, as you just stated. Inside, physicality, whether it's Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis off the edge, that's something that would be overly concerning for me as well. But maybe it comes down to that. QB mobility, whoever handles it the best. We know Jalen's a different style runner. I mean, he can get north and south on you. Mahomes, a little bit more east and west, keeps plays alive, accurate on the move. Something that you would look at and say, all right, well, whoever manages that the best, makes more plays on that, maybe just avoids more mistakes that way, will have an advantage in this game because I think both defensive lines can go attack mode and be able to get to the quarterback. I think a lot of people would look at this and say 3-peat. It's going to be a lot of the discussion. Pressure, can they handle it? That just doesn't feel like an issue at all for me for this Kansas City team.
No.
I don't think that that's going to be something that phases them.
Pressure I'm not worried about the pressure. Like, I mean, goodness gracious. Like, Philly has a ton of pressure on them too. It's the playoff. It's the Super Bowl. Of course there's pressure. I don't think one team is more equipped than the other to handle it. I just know when I watch Philly, I feel like there is a ruggedness to their approach. And I think there is also I don't know. I think there is also I think the Kansas City is a little bit unfairly characterized with how they're assessed. Because I think you think they're a little flash. You think they're a little bit more wide open. They're really not. Pacheco is a tone setter on their offense. I think they have a couple guys on the offensive line that'll get after you. I think defensively, they got a bunch of guys that are hard-hitting dudes. Like, I think you think that they're a finesse team, and they're not. They're pretty dang physical. I don't think they're as physical as Philly. I don't know if you see it that way.
I think the physicality is probably close. I might lean Philadelphia just a little bit, but I want to see if that offensive line is going to be healthy too. If they're having to move the pieces around, that could be a little bit of a problem. Something that would be a little bit concerning for me as far as, exactly how that's going to roll, how that's going to be. But I think there's a chance we could get an amazing Super Bowl, to be honest with you. You look at that Kansas City rush defense, allowed 1,731 rushing yards, just over 100 yards a game this season. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams allowed fewer rushing yards on the year. So it's a group that has been pretty good against the run, maybe not overly dominant, but a good rush defense. Philadelphia's will be 2 slots behind where Kansas City is. So I think that they can neutralize that part of it. And I would imagine that's where you want to go, right? You're not going to let Saquon run wild. I mean, he's got 7 60-yard touchdown runs this year. I mean, if there's something that you have to try to take away, I would imagine that's going to be it.
I think that's a big part of it. But the more attention you pay him, the more opportunities Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown have in one-on-one situations. That's what makes him really hard to defend, is that not only can Saquon kill you on the ground, he can kill you through the air. If you get him on safeties, like safeties aren't tackling him. That ain't happening. And then they also have other guys that are super capable after the catch. A.J. Brown being the best example. But Goddard's had a nice postseason. I mean, they've had a bunch. They've had a bunch of really, really good moments where guys have stepped up for him. So I think they're very tough to defend. And then the big X factor is Jalen's legs, which is always a challenge and always something that you got to account for.
No doubt. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a good one. And we got plenty of time to preview it as you get the Pro Bowl games this weekend.
Yeah, are you ready for those?
7-year-old is off the charts excited for it, and I don't know why. I mean,
really?
We've already said he's a sucker for commercials and advertising because he was the only person in America that remembered that this was the first year of the 12-team playoff solely based on ESPN's commercials. Yet now he has seen the Pro Bowl commercials, and he is like, he's asked me 47 times in the last 3 days, when is the Pro Bowl games, Pro Bowl Olympics, Pro Bowl activities, Pro Bowl festivities.
I can't wait for you to tune in and let us know how it goes.
Next weekend, kid. We get to watch Tug of War.
I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to learn.
NFL hacky sack next weekend, kid. It's going to be great. Can't wait.
Love that.
Yeah. NFL long drive competition. Yay. Can't wait. So, but hey, he's pumped. We'll sure we'll watch it. Have it on somewhere.
Love that.
Unbelievable.
How do you feel about Xavier Worthy and his addition to Kansas City? Like, I'm really curious. I think he's much better than I anticipated.
He had big catch. Yeah, had a big catch yesterday. I thought he would be sort of the new Miko Hardman when they first took him out of Georgia, where you're using him on some end arounds, using him to stretch the field once or twice. But he's been more of an every down receiver than I anticipated. I've seen him this year have a couple of nice catches in traffic down the field. Obviously, using him on some of the intermediate stuff to try to get the catch and run. He's been great. I thought it was going to be a good addition, but I thought it was going to be with different utilization or maybe more limited utilization, but something that team needed. But I think he's been a really nice add for Kansas City this year, and you got to pay attention to him. We saw him at Texas. We've seen him in the NFL. He can run by you. So,
yes,
he's somebody that you have to pay attention to. And they have just been able to go find weapons literally anywhere and everywhere. But he's nice, man. I mean, 98 targets on the year. They've used him too. So I think he's somebody who has a chance to continue making plays in this Super Bowl, and we'll see if he ends up being the difference. We know that either Kansas City or Philadelphia are going to come up with giant rings after this win. But if you're looking for a different type ring, Greg, where should you go?
That'd be Bromberg's. They're right there in Mountain Brook Village. They're also there at the Summit for you, and they responsibly source their diamonds. And those natural diamonds are amazing. And if you're not unfamiliar with the diamond process, it's scary to you, go to Bromberg's. They'll help you out. They'll make it easier for you. It's stressful. It's a big purchase. It's maybe the biggest purchase you've ever made in your life, but they have the best diamonds at the best prices and the best sales staff to help ease you through that process. That natural diamond is special, extremely special, just like the person that you're going to give it to. So go and get it today from a place that is also special, and that's Bromberg's. You can check them out in Mountain Brook Village, or you can go up to the Summit where you can see them as well.
All right. When we come back, we'll put a bow on today's show, a little bit more NFL, maybe a recruiting note for an in-state school when we return, and a bad box score of the day that you will not believe. Next on Mac and Cube in the Morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We've mentioned Kansas City and finding a way to win those tight games, those close games. Obviously, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes know how to get that done. Did it again yesterday. And the extent of finding ways to win those close games. 17 straight one-score games the Chiefs have won. Andy Reid on just how they were able to pull out another close one.
This came right down to an inch, literally. I mean, that's what the stop was. And so it was back and forth. It was going to be back and forth. Whoever had the ball last was probably going to come out on the, in the lead, so in the win. But I'm proud of our guys battling like they battled. I mean, Pat Mahomes was phenomenal. Travis Kelce, their leadership, Chris Jones. I can just go through all these guys. I mean, they didn't waver at all, and that's how they've been. I mean, you know that from training camp. I mean, they've got this personality where they know how to bear down. They know when to have fun, but they also know when to bear down.
Your CBD store wants to help you bear down on better night's sleep, on waking up feeling refreshed, on better focus throughout the course of the day. They can help you with all of those. Great uplifting effect to start your day with mango CBG gummies. If you have arthritis, anxiety, you or your pet, they have products that can help you there. What about skincare, gut health? They can help you with that or help your pet with that. This Trim by SunMed is on shelves now for weight loss as well. Appetite suppressant that's going to help you shed some of the pounds from the holidays. Right there at your CBD store. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. Visit one of their 3 locations, Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage and Cleaver, and Trustful just off 459. Your CBD store where good health hits home. Patrick Mahomes' reaction on grabbing another AFC championship.
Get to the Super Bowl, and I don't take it for granted. And to be able to do it again at Arrowhead was special. I mean, last year it was awesome. You get there and you win it, but you're at a different stadium. And then being able to win it at Arrowhead, and then you get that trophy on that stage, and you look around, and there's not a seat empty. It is a special place, and I'm glad that I get to be a part of Chiefs Kingdom and here in Kansas City because these moments that I'll have for the rest of my life.
All right, that's a wrap-up of the AFC Championship game from yesterday. We'll roll in now to our bad box score of the day. A bit of a different combination of bad box scores for you today. You guys familiar with Cochise College?
No.
Cochise College?
What town is that?
Cochise, C-O-C-H-I-S-E.
Cochise?
Cochise?
Arizona?
I have no idea.
It's in Cochise County in the southeastern corner of Arizona. A Chiricahua Apache who was the key war leader during the Apache Wars, who the school is named after. Population of 125,000 in the city. Bisbee County there in Sierra Vista, Arizona.
They are the Warhawks.
They're not.
Oh.
Close.
I'll say the Eagles.
They're the Apaches.
Oh, okay. Right there. Yeah.
The Apaches doubled down yesterday. The women's team knocked off Community Christian College. Those poor Saints. We have had them on the show many a time.
Poor guys.
Well, this was poor girls because they lost 121-34.
Like
the second quarter, Cochise scored 36.
Okay. It's admirable.
Community Christian did not score.
That's pathetic.
Not one?
Ooh.
54-12 was your halftime score. Cochise went 54 of 92. Only 4 of 16 from 3 for the game. I can't give you Christian Community College stats because they're not listed.
Can't do it?
Not to be outdone, the Cochise College men knocked off Community Christian College 133-46.
Another
65-23 at the half. 55 of 81 from the floor, 10 of 27 from 3.
Double oh my.
59 rebounds, 46 on the defensive end for the Cochise College men, who had 6 players in double figures. I want to tell you about Game Day Men's Health quickly. If you are lacking sleep, feeling on edge, go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today. Schedule a free appointment. You'll get a free PSA test, free testosterone test. They'll give you an idea where your baseline health is right now at Game Day Men's Health. Low stress environment, locker room feel, great people there at Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today. Schedule that free appointment and get that free testosterone and free PSA test. We're back tomorrow, 7 to 10. 3-Man Front is coming at you next.